Chapter 279, Treat Yingxue to roast whole lamb. If you've been pretending to be a saint for too long, sometimes you need to show your true colors, or you'll forget your nature. Yingxue licked her lips. Yihan, go and have the kitchen prepare a few dishes. Yingxue placed her hand on her stomach. Although she had succeeded in making Liu Shulan and her daughter feel disgusted with the lavish spread on the table, she couldn't neglect her stomach. Yihan exclaimed and hurried to the kitchen. A figure in white descended from the sky, and Yihan's composed voice resonated. In my mansion, I've recently hired a few new chefs. Honorable Miss Su, would you be interested in indulging them? Your Highness. Box novel. Yingxue's eyes sparkled. She was about to ask why Yihan was here and why he moved around the Marquis manor with such agility. However, given his identity and how he had snatched her jade pendant during their first meeting, she decided not to press for answers. Her stomach rumbled. Yihan's timing was impeccable. She approached Yihan with the demeanor of an eager cat, playfully waving her hand. Thank you for the gracious invitation, Your Highness. Yihan watched as Yihan carried Yingxue, and together, they flew out of the courtyard like a pair of rainbows. She stood with her mouth agape, exclaiming, Your Highness treats Miss so well. He even noticed when Miss hadn't eaten. Inside the 9th Prince's mansion, Yingxue had barely landed in the garden when she caught the aroma of roasted meat. After touching the ground, she hurried to a pavilion and found 2 chefs in white robes and hats, busily turning a skewer with a pole. Her eyes gleamed with excitement. Your Highness, your chefs know how to roast meat. And it smelled so tantalizing. It's a whole roasted lamb, Mochi said softly. Mochi had been tasked with finding these chefs for Your Highness. He wasn't sure where Your Highness had discovered them, but they were aiming to please a girl by treating her to delicious food and drink. Upon Your Highness' order, he had located the skilled chefs. Sending out the shadow guards and urging the horses at top speed, they tracked down these chefs in North Coast City. Although their dishes appeared rustic, the taste was exquisite. Even the palace's royal chefs might not be able to match their flavor. Yingxue inhaled the tempting aroma in the air and, overwhelmed, her stomach grumbled. She was so touched that she almost started crying like a kitten deprived of its milk. Your Highness, it smells so good. This lamb, it looks delicious. A colossal oven held an entire lamb, and the sizzling meat drippings created a delightful hissing sound. Some of the drippings fell into the oven, landing on the charcoal and sparking to life, making the culinary experience even more tantalizing. Yingxue hadn't been this hungry earlier, but standing in front of the roast lamb, her stomach couldn't help but growl. Yihan placed his hand on her abdomen and turned to Mochi, urging him to hasten. She's hungry. Let's move more quickly. Mochi conferred with the 2 chefs, and the chefs commenced the meat-cutting process. They handed a knife to Yihan and gestured for him to cut the first slice, a sign of respect for his noble status and the customary etiquette for starting the feast of a whole roasted lamb. Yihan passed the knife to Yingxue. You can do it. Cut wherever you'd like to start. Your Highness, this is the prince's mansion. The lamb was prepared by you, so you should have the honor of beginning the feast, Mochi kindly reminded. Yihan leaned close to Yingxue, his warm breath brushing against her ear as he said, She makes the decisions for me. She's the most important. Yingxue's hand holding the knife trembled, almost slipping into the fire. She didn't have a ringing in her ears. She heard Yihan clearly stating that she was the most important person in his life. Chapter 280, Jinling broke in awkwardly. Yingxue's cheeks instantly turned bright red. Your Highness, why don't you do it? I will do it together with you. Yihan stood behind her, pressing his body against hers, holding her right hand. He used a knife to cut off a piece of meat and pinched it with his left hand, feeding it to Yingxue. She opened her mouth to eat, but due to nervousness, she accidentally bit Yihan's finger. Yingxue's face turned bright red, and she kept sucking on Yihan's finger. He didn't pull it out, so she continued to suck. His soft fingers were slightly calloused, but they carried a strong force, reminding her of the night they shared a bed. Box novel. Is it delicious? The man's highly tempting voice echoed, causing Su Yingxue's heartbeat to falter. "It's delicious," Su Yingxue replied, her voice trembling. "Are you planning to eat my finger?" Yihan looked down at the top of her head. Su Yingxue was startled and quickly turned around. "Your Highness, I'm sorry. Did I hurt you?" Why couldn't she control her damn mouth? Why did she end up eating Yihan's hand? Yihan gazed at his oily finger, which sparkled. There was a hint of regret in his eyes. "I thought you liked it. It doesn't seem very delicious." Su Yingxue's mind was in a whirl. How could she dare to say that Yihan's hand wasn't delicious? She shook her head hastily. "No. Your Highness' hands are delicious. Very delicious. My hands are delicious. Is the roast meat not delicious?" Yihan chuckled. The corners of his mouth curled into a mischievous smile, and his jade-like face exuded irresistible allure. Su Yingxue could feel her heart rate spiraling out of control. In deep regret, she tried to figure out what to say to divert the situation. "All delicious." Wouldn't that be admitting that she enjoyed eating Yihan's hand? That was too outrageous. Thankfully, her stomach growled at the right moment, and she licked her lips. "Your Highness, I'm a bit hungry. Could Yihan possibly hold on to this matter any longer?" Yihan looked at the trace of oil on the corner of her mouth and his eyes suddenly turned deep. "I'm hungry too." Su Yingxue felt elated. "Then let's go together." Before she could finish the sentence, Yihan had already kissed her. He lowered his head and kissed her lips. Her mouth still carried the aroma of roasted meat, and his deep voice was highly captivating. Mochi had already taken the two chefs aside to avoid any punishment. He held his sword and stared at the sky in speechless resignation. "What did I do wrong, God? You want Master, an old bachelor, to show off his affection in front of me?" His heart was on the verge of collapsing. "Imperial Uncle, it smells so good. Imperial Uncle, I want to eat meat." Chu Jinling ran in with a huff. He had seen Yihan and Su Yingxue hugging from a distance and exclaimed, "Imperial Uncle, the weather isn't cold. You don't need to be like this." He was just joking, but when he got closer and saw Yihan's dark expression, his legs trembled. Lin Cece followed him and patted his shoulder when she saw him trembling all over. She frowned and asked, "What's wrong?" Chu Jinling's trembling tongue rendered him speechless. Only when Lin Cece saw Yihan's expression and sensed the menacing atmosphere did she lower her head and awkwardly pull a tight-lipped smile. "We've come at the wrong time. Let's leave now." Chapter 281, Make People Throw Up. She tugged at Chu Jinling's sleeve and prepared to escape. However, Su Yingxue quickly broke free from Yihan's embrace and smiled, saying, "You came at the right time. Such a big sheep. Your Highness, I couldn't finish it. Come and eat together." Sure. Lin Cece also smelled the fragrance of the roasted mutton, and her eyes instantly lit up. "It's better not." Chu Jinling pulled her back and smiled apologetically. "Imperial Uncle, we will visit you another day." He was about to escape with Lin Cece, but Su Yingxue jumped down to stop them. "Since you are here, there's no reason to leave on an empty stomach. Otherwise, if word gets out, they will say that your 9th Imperial Uncle is stingy." Box novel. Lin Cece didn't dare to ruin Yihan's plan. She waved her hand awkwardly. "Forget it. Dr. Su, I'll leave this beautiful scenery and delicious food for you to enjoy." She and Chu Jinling probably wouldn't be able to enjoy it. Especially the handsome Yihan. No. Well, share blessings and difficulties. Su Yingxue blocked the two of them. If they left, how awkward would it be for her and Yihan to eat alone? The scene of her eating his finger was still fresh in her mind. Oh no, she was recalling it. Lin Cece and Chu Jinling locked eyes as if saying, "Look at the trouble you've brought upon us." Chu Jinling's mind spun rapidly as he held Lin Cece's hand. His smile was exceptionally bright. "Since Imperial Aunt has said so, then I won't stand on ceremony." He turned around and looked at Yihan with a smile as radiant as a flower, saying, "Imperial Uncle, Cece and one will just have a meal here, you don't mind, right?" As he spoke, he observed. Indeed, The use of imperial aunt had significantly softened Chu Yihan's expression. Yes. Chu Yihan nodded in agreement. Chu Jinling patted his chest. Su Yingxue's face was flushed, but he couldn't care less. After all, it was a choice between two evils. He was more afraid of offending his imperial uncle than being blacklisted by Su Yingxue, who was also his business partner. A roasted whole lamb filled the stomachs of Su Yingxue, Chu Jinling, and Lin Cixi. To aid digestion, the chef even heated fresh goat's milk and added hawthorn to it, ensuring that it wouldn't cause any discomfort in their stomachs. After Su Yingxue finished her drink, a satisfied smile graced her face. Her smile was as brilliant as a galaxy, and even though Chu Yihan had only had a glass of wine, he appeared to be intoxicated. He leaned in and kissed Su Yingxue passionately. Su Yingxue awkwardly resisted, saying, "Oh, Your Highness, the 9th prince, and the others are still around." "They're not here," Chu Yihan replied. He continued to kiss her fervently. Su Yingxue, out of the corner of her eye, noticed that there were only the two of them left in the entire pavilion. There was no sign of the other two. Chu Jinling had already whisked Lin Cixi away. Lin Cixi, holding her stomach, urged, "Slow down. We just ate. Xiaoju, take it easy." Chu Jinling had previously stolen Chu Yihan's wine and felt invigorated. When Lin Cixi couldn't keep up, he turned around, lifted her onto his shoulder, and rushed away. As he ran, he exclaimed, "Burp, can't be slow. My imperial uncle will kill people. Whoever dares to disrupt his plans will face death." Ooh! Puff! Chu Jinling stopped in an empty alley and suddenly heard a strange sound behind him. He turned around while still carrying Lin Cixi and mumbled, "Strange, there's no one here. Where did that sound come from?" Chapter 282, Let's Do Something Bad. Chu Jinling. I'll kill you. She had just eaten the roasted whole lamb, lamb leg, and mutton, and he had made her vomit it all. "Hey! Why do you want to kill me? I didn't ruin your good time." Chu Jinling put her down, his fair and handsome face displaying confusion. Lin Cixi steadied herself, ready to strike, but looking at Chu Jinling's fair skin, she reached out to touch it. "It's so soft, and your skin is so smooth." Box novel. Even better than her skin. Suddenly, she couldn't bear to hit him anymore. A kiss. Smoot. Lin Cixi hooked her arms around Chu Jinling's neck and gave him a smooch on the cheek. Chu Jinling chuckled and said, "You kissed me. Are you planning something mischievous too?" "What do you mean by mischievous?" Lin Cixi was not drunk, but Chu Jinling's alcoholic breath and warm closeness made her feel unexpectedly tipsy. "It means when a man and a woman." "Hey." Chu Jinling mischievously winked. Lin Cixi's eyes widened. The person in front of her had a roguish yet innocent smile, with eyes as pure as a child's. A daring idea popped into Lin Cixi's mind. She hooked her arms around Chu Jinling's neck and offered her lips, saying, "Xiaoju, let's be mischievous together." "Huh?" Chu Jinling was taken aback. He was only joking. But why had Lin Cixi just tackled him like that? Su Yingxue had been trapped in the 9th prince's mansion by Chu Yihan the day before. Fortunately, he hadn't done anything to her, and he had even said quite seriously, "I'm not the type of person who lusts after beauty." Thinking about it now, Su Yingxue still found it somewhat greasy. She couldn't help but say, "Don't lust after beauty, and don't kiss me." Every time she thought about that scene, her face turned bright red. "Miss, old Madame Zhong is here." Yihan brought old Madame Zhong in. A few days ago, Su Yingxue had moved old Madame Zhong out of her courtyard. Yihan was her person on the surface, while old Madame Zhong was her hidden eye in the Marquis manner. Su Yingxue put aside her amorous thoughts and remained as composed as ever. "Old Madame Zhong, is there something important?" "Yes, Miss. Yesterday, Lady Liu and the second young miss were upset. Today, the second young miss created a ruckus in Qingshan Court, and then in her courtyard. The disturbance hasn't stopped yet," old Madame Zhong reported truthfully. Su Yingxue smiled. "How did Lady Liu react?" "I'm guessing she's fed up with Su Yurou's tantrums as well. If Su Yurou wants to throw a fit, let her. After all, as long as she didn't want to die, she wouldn't come to bother her." I wouldn't have come if it were just ordinary items being smashed, but I observed that the second young miss smashed the best tables and chairs, and some of them were even brought in from outside the residence by Lady Liu. Lady Liu tried to reason with her, but the second young miss got even more agitated. Old Madame Zhong kindly reminded her. Su Yingxue asked Yihan to see old Madame Zhong off. When Yihan returned, Su Yingxue was massaging her temples. Yihan said, "Miss, the second young miss is shooting herself in the foot. She smashed all the furniture. Let's see what she'll use now. Don't let your guard down." Old Madame Zhong said she wouldn't tell us if it were just small items being smashed. Go and find out how many things Su Yurou has smashed and their value, Su Yingxue instructed. Although she wasn't sure if there was a hidden agenda behind Su Yurou's actions, she had a feeling that this bitch was on the brink of a breakdown under her management. Chapter 283. Find Su Yingxue to settle the debt. Su Yurou was even more sorrowful than Su Yingxue had imagined. She had long since broken down. However, while she was smashing things in her breakdown, she suddenly thought of a way to vent her anger. She selectively chose furniture to smash, and she even specifically targeted the expensive ones. After smashing, she had Unruly compile a list. The following day, she took people with her to Red Brocade Lane to make purchases. When she brought back the items, she left the Marquis manor with the bill, box novel. Su Yingxue was in the accounting office, clattering away on an abacus. This account book and abacus were the first shed ever encountered in both her past and present lives. Thankfully, she was smart and didn't get buried under this mountain of accounts. Yihan knocked on the door, bringing in a middle-aged man with a grim expression. The man was dressed as a businessman, and if he shaved off the 2 tufts of beard at the corners of his mouth, he looked quite similar to Manager Qi. The moment he entered, he respectfully greeted Su Yingxue. "I am the proprietor of Red Brocade Lane. I've heard that eldest young miss is currently in charge of the Marquis manor. I've come to request that eldest young Ice settle the bill." "Settle what bill?" Su Yingxue furrowed her brows slightly. Red Brocade Lane primarily sold furniture, but the Marquis manor hadn't made any furniture purchases recently. "This is the bill from the Marquis manor. Yesterday, the second young miss purchased quite a lot of furniture in our shop and instructed me to come to the Marquis manor to settle the bill." The proprietor handed over the bill with a smile. It spanned 3 to 4 pages in total. Su Yingxue couldn't help but chuckle as she read it. "So, my dear sister is quite the shopper. She spent a total of 500 taels of silver. Why didn't she just sell herself and buy whatever she wanted?" "Miss, the second young miss is deliberately trying to embarrass you," Yihan complained in Su Yingxue's ear. Su Yingxue sneered. "It's not just about embarrassment. She also wants to drain my pockets." The proprietor, having been in business for many years, had also collected bills from many noble households. Seeing that Su Yingxue and her servant had gloomy expressions, he quickly offered, "I'm not in a rush to collect payment. If eldest young miss can't make the decision, it's not too late for Marquis to settle the shop's bill once he learns of it. Now that I am managing the household, there is no need to trouble my father. Yihan, please settle the shop's bill, not a tael less." Su Yingxue handed the bill to Yihan. Although Yihan was extremely reluctant, she had to obey Su Yingxue's instructions. After seeing off the Red Brocade Lane proprietor, Yilan's face fell. "Miss, the second young miss is doing this on purpose. She's so extravagant that her spending alone exceeds the Marquis manor's monthly allowance. If Master learns of this, he'll certainly blame you, miss, for your poor management." Su Yurou was dragging down the Marquis manor's reputation and deliberately extorting money from Su Yingxue. Even though her miss didn't lack those 500 taels, Yihan was angry on her behalf. Who would want to be the scapegoat for Su Yurou? "Yihan, do you know what it's like to drive someone insane?" Su Yingxue jotted down the expenditure of 500 taels on the account and chuckled softly. Drive someone insane? Doubt filled Yilan's eyes. However, she had been with Su Yingxue for so long that she would mull over her words before responding. Suddenly, she figured it out. "You mean driving the second young miss insane? Miss, what brilliant plan do you have this time?" Her eyes sparkled like stars in the night sky. Su Yingxue tapped her fingers lightly on the table. Continuously suppress her, and when she thinks she can make a comeback, deliver a heavy blow, and then, she must be defeated. Yihan stood beside Su Yingxue and quickly answered. Su Yingxue scratched her nose. Smart. In Sunset Court, Su Yurou was proudly admiring the new furniture she had just purchased. She gently stroked the polished mahogany tabletop. This feeling is truly remarkable. Chapter 284. If you spend money recklessly again, you'll be killed beside her. Unruly was still holding the newly custom-made dowry box. Miss, look at this new jewelry box. The workmanship is so exquisite. The furniture in Red Brocade Lane has always been well made. It's a pity the golden silkwood hasn't arrived yet, so we can only use this mahogany and rosewood, Su Yurou snorted in disdain. If they had the prized golden silkwood, she would make Su Yingxue foot the bill, watching as she emptied the Marquis Manor's treasury and got kicked out by their father. Miss, even though we've bought so many things and Su Yingxue has paid for them, won't Madam be angry if she finds out? Unruly still had lingering fears from her past punishment by Liu Shulan. In her past role, she followed Su Yurou and enjoyed many benefits, but the circumstances were different now with Su Yingxue in charge of the household. If Su Yurou pushed her limits too far, she, as a maid, might face an unfortunate outcome. Box novel. Why worry? I bought some for my mother too. Immediately send the items to her. She's been holding back a lot of frustration lately. Let's make her happy. Su Yurou ordered with an air of arrogance. Unruly delivered the new furniture to Liu Shulan. However, rather than showing joy, Liu Shulan learned that it was Su Yingxue who had paid for them and reprimanded Su Yurou. Su Yurou's eyes welled up with tears from the scolding. She pouted, saying, Mother, even though Su Yingxue is in charge, she can't mistreat us. One don't believe Daddy would allow us to suffer. Your father may not wish to see it, but Su Yingxue's cunning schemes are hard to guard against. This time it's just 500 taels, not a considerable sum. She won't likely bring this matter to your father. Even if she tries to make a fuss with these 500 taels, I can handle it. But if you continue to waste money and give Su Yingxue a handle to grasp, I won't be able to save you, Liu Shulan sternly advised. She didn't mean to threaten her but felt compelled to issue a serious warning. Previously, when Liu Shulan embezzled a significant sum of money to purchase a deadly plague at Silver Moon Pavilion, she didn't know how Su Dingheng had found out, and he had nearly lost his trust in her. Over the past few days, she had refrained from spending money, hoping that Su Dingheng's anger would subside, allowing her to regain his trust and turn the tables against Su Yingxue. With Su Yurou lavishly spending money now, Liu Shulan felt the need to remind her and set boundaries. I understand, Mother, Su Yurou muttered with a touch of resentment. Well, I've already bought all these pieces of furniture, so one can't return them. These items can't be returned, but all the custom-made ones you ordered, return them. Liu Shulan's tone was uncompromising. After Su Yingxue falls, I won't skimp on the money you want to spend. However, until then, you must behave prudently and responsibly. Su Yurou let out a resentful sigh. Liu Shulan firmly gripped her hand and insisted, Did you hear my warning? Don't cause any more trouble. I heard you, Su Yurou replied, trembling. Her mother seldom used such stern words with her. Su Yingxue spent 2 days in the accounting room without receiving any additional bills from Su Yurou. She dispatched Yihan to investigate, and Yihan returned with puzzling news. It's rather strange, second young miss sent someone to Red Brocade Lane and returned all the custom-made items, even forfeiting a deposit of several dozen tael. Su Yingxue raised an eyebrow. It appears that Lady Liu is quite adept at disciplining her daughter. Yihan was a bit concerned. But won't this disrupt Miss' plans? Su Yingxue recorded the final entry and smiled. Not necessarily. Lady Liu may discipline her daughter, but if her daughter doesn't heed her discipline, what can she do? Yihan saw the gleam of insight in Su Yingxue's eyes and felt relieved that her eldest young miss had another clever idea. Chapter 285. Jealous of Su Yingxue's wealth. Afternoon, Su Yingxue changed into a peach blossom dress and adorned herself with a pearl and golden hairpin. She looked luxurious and elegant. When her servants saw her, they couldn't help but admire her, saying, "Eldest young miss is so beautiful and noble." Yes, the hairpin on her head is made of pure gold and studded with pearls the size of a thumb. Bah! Those are called luminous pearls. Eldest young miss just walked past a dim area in the corridor, and that pearl is glowing. The servants discussed animatedly, and Yurou gritted her teeth so hard that they almost shattered. She didn't have many gold ornaments to begin with, and those adorned with pearls were already quite luxurious. Yingxue's golden hairpin even featured a thumb-sized luminous pearl. Box novel. The Marquis manor might not even have many of these. Why should she have it? Yingxue has it, so why can't I? Yurou stomped her foot in anger and rushed toward the door. Unruly remembered Liu Shulan's reminder and cautioned her, "Miss, Madam said that no matter what tricks Yingxue uses, we must not stoop to her level." Is this stooping to her level? Just listen to what those people are saying. They used to praise me and flatter me as their mistress, but now they've all gone to admire Yingxue. One want to see how exquisite her golden hairpin is, Yurou said as she rushed out. Unruly anxiously shouted, Miss, don't be impulsive." Yingxue was concerned that Yurou wouldn't be able to catch up, so she deliberately slowed her pace and spent some extra time in the garden. Sure enough, Yurou soon arrived. When she saw the golden hairpin on Yingxue's head, her face turned green with envy. How can you have such a valuable hairpin?" Although she usually associated with the daughters of prestigious families and had seen a lot of jewelry, the hairpin on Yingxue's head was something she had never seen before. The thumb-sized luminous pearl became even more dazzling in the sunlight. This. Yingxue's snow-white fingers lightly brushed the hairpin, and she appeared nonchalant. "I bought it from Thousand Jiao Pavilion, and it just arrived the day before yesterday. There's only one like it in Jiangdu City. Sister, I'm sorry, but it's quite expensive. You can only look at it." Yingxue, what do you mean by this? Yurou blushed and bit her lip. The literal meaning is that valuable items are matched with valuable people. As a daughter of a concubine, you should wear a regular golden hairpin. See, the golden hairpin on Jillian's head suits you well. Yingxue raised her eyebrows. Following Yingxue's gaze, Yurou saw the golden hairpin on Jillian's head. The anger in her heart spewed out. Are you a fool? A lowly servant is worthy of wearing a golden hairpin? Second young miss, please watch your words. Even though I am a servant, I am also eldest young miss servant. Second miss, how can you call me a lowly servant? It depends on whose master you serve. Yihan coquettishly replied. Her voice was clear and melodious, akin to pearls falling on a jade plate, a sound that brought delight and tranquility. All of you. Just wait. Yurou turned and ran. What's the big deal about a golden hairpin? I'll buy one too. Want one too. She stormed out, hailed a carriage, and rushed to Thousand Jiao Pavilion in anger. Yingxue and Yihan exchanged smiles and calmly entered their carriage. Thousand Jiao Pavilion's business was flourishing, and Wu Jinyang had been too busy to see Yingxue for a while. However, when she learned that Yingxue was visiting today, she set aside all her tasks and personally welcomed her at the door, escorting her to a private room. Chapter 286. Another 10,000 taels. As soon as Yingxue entered Thousand Jiao Pavilion, she was greeted by the sweet and refreshing fragrance in the air, which made her expression relax with pleasure. This is Chun Tingxue, a perfume I recently formulated. Placing a bottle of it in the main hall fills the entire room with a delightful and fresh aroma, Wu Jinyang explained to her attentively. Perfume? It's made by dissolving spices in water, and you can either place it in your home or apply it to your skin. It leaves a long-lasting fragrance. Sister Jinyang is meticulous and skillful. You are also good at innovation. No wonder the Thousand Jiao Pavilion has become famous since it opened. Yingxue's eyes were filled with admiration. In terms of doing business, Wu Jinyang was a well-deserved shrewd person. She was much more powerful than her box novel. There are many ways to do business, and there are many things to worry about. Compared to your medical center, it's more complicated. However, now that the medical center has been rebuilt, you can rest at home for a few days. One heard that you've been taking care of the family recently and doing very well." In the room, Wu Jinyang served her a cup of tea. Su Yingxue, while savoring the tea's fragrance mixed with the scent of the perfume, found the combination surprisingly harmonious and refreshing. "Indeed, Sister Jinyang, you're well informed," she remarked with a light chuckle. "I also have some bad news for you. Today, Su Yurou arrived in a fit of anger and selected numerous clothes and jewelry. She even got into a scuffle with someone just now. My shopkeeper reminded her not to buy too many at once. She scolded the shopkeeper and took more instead." A crease appeared between Wu Jinyang's eyebrows. She knew that Su Yingxue was in charge of the Marquis Manor, and she had naturally heard about the matter of Red Brocade Lane going to the Marquis Manor to report the debt. She was worried that Su Yurou was deliberately making an enemy out of her. She had spent so much money and had put it all on Su Yingxue. The corners of Su Yingxue's lips curled up in a relaxed manner. "No matter how much money she spends, you just accept it. If she says that she wants to repay the money, sister doesn't have to be polite. Just send someone to the Marquis Manor to ask for the money. Sending someone to the Marquis Manor for payment, isn't that essentially requesting payment from you? If the money comes from your hands, Marquis may blame you for poor stewardship and inadequate control. After all, I've lived amidst such power struggles for many years." Wu Jinyang understood the household's intricate dynamics well. "What you want is the Marquis Manor's money, and it will be deducted from Daddy's account." Su Yingxue smirked and winked at her. Wu Jinyang was no longer concerned, smiling as she suggested, "In that case, why not provide a share for all the Su family's women? This way, not only can I conduct business, but it would also grant you considerable prestige." "Sister Jinyang, what an excellent idea. I'd like to trouble you to prepare a set for me. One have 2 older cousins and 3 younger ones. Sister, please don't skimp." "Of course." Wu Jinyang personally arranged the clothing and accessories for Su Yingxue and had them delivered to the other 2 Su family residences. Unsurprisingly, Su Yurou purchased everything on credit and had 1,000 Jiao Pavilion bill the Marquis Manor. Upon returning with a cart full of items, Su Yurou consciously avoided revealing her purchases to Liu Shulan. However, her bill was promptly delivered to Su Dingheng the following day. Upon hearing of Su Dingheng's outburst in the main hall, Liu Shulan immediately thought of Su Yurou. Liu Shulan was afraid that Su Yurou had stirred up trouble again, so she went to inspect her courtyard. Su Yurou had no opportunity to conceal her actions, and a variety of new clothes and accessories lay exposed before Liu Shulan. Following a count, Liu Shulan was furious, wishing to give Su Yurou a sound slap. "You foolish child. I've repeatedly warned you not to cause any trouble. Don't cause any trouble. You bought so many things. If your father learns about this expenditure, what will happen?" Chapter 287, Su Dingheng hits Su Yurou mother. Su Yurou hung her head, her voice weak, not daring to tell her mother that she had spent nearly 5,000 taels in total. Liu Shulan thought that Su Dingheng's anger in the front hall was probably related to Su Yurou's spending. Before she could figure out what to do, old Madame Qiu rushed over to inform her, "Madam, Marquis has summoned you and second young miss to the front hall. The master is in a great rage, and eldest young miss is already kneeling in the front hall." Su Yingxue was kneeling in the front hall? Liu Shulan took Su Yurou to the front hall, but she felt that things were taking a bad turn. Box novel. The halls of the Marquis Manor were exceptionally spacious, and the front hall for receiving guests was imposing and solemn. At this moment, Su Dingheng, in a fit of anger, was pacing around the front hall, while Su Yingxue knelt on the ground in a red robe, looking especially helpless. As soon as Su Yurou arrived, Su Dingheng erupted, "Men, seize this unfilial daughter and make her kneel." 2 burly maids immediately rushed forward and grabbed Su Yurou, forcing her down next to Su Yingxue. One of these maids, a relative of old Madame Zhong, used her strength and coincidentally pressed Su Yurou onto a shard of porcelain. Su Yurou instantly screamed in pain, "Ah, it hurts. Daddy, I'm in so much pain." "You're only realizing it now? When you were spending money, why didn't you exercise restraint?" If it weren't for your sister being unable to access so much silver, one would never have known about it. You two prodigals are close to emptying my Marquis manor. Su Dingheng was livid and slammed the bill onto Su Yurou's face. Su Yurou usually protected her face as if it were her lifeline, but now, she was terrified. My face. Daddy, please don't hit my face. Su Dingheng saw that she was still protecting her face at this moment. A gush of blood rushed up from his heart and he almost fainted. Marquis, please take care of your health. Liu Shulan hurriedly approached to support him, using her gentle hands to caress his chest. But Su Dingheng was furious, and he pushed her away, scolding, "You've raised a good daughter. Marquis, please calm down and take care of your health. It's all my fault." Liu Shulan began to shed tears without saying much. "And you, Su Yingxue? One tasked you with managing the household, but is this how you manage it? Your younger sister spent so much money, ostensibly for herself, but you were generous enough to share it with uncle and aunt. Why didn't you send some to the entire Jiangdu city?" Su Dingheng's flushed face turned ashen. One Su Yurou was already causing him heartache, and Su Yingxue seemed to be getting on his nerves even more. "Father, it's my fault. However, this issue with my little sister spending so lavishly in Thousand Jiao Pavilion will surely reach the ears of uncle and aunt. My little sister had previously reported a few hundred taels of silver. I thought it was with father's approval that one considered buying some new clothes for my cousins. One didn't expect that father wasn't aware of it." Su Yingxue appeared full of remorse. Su Dingheng widened his eyes. "What? She reported several hundred taels of silver earlier. The account book, bring it to me." Su Yingxue promptly had Yilan hand over the account book, and Su Dingheng saw that it clearly stated that Su Yurou had spent 500 taels on purchasing furniture from Red Brocade Lane. You unfilial daughter." Su Dingheng slapped Su Yurou, and his gaze turned cruel. "So it's not your sister recklessly spending money. It's you, this prodigal child, who wants to squander the wealth of my Marquis of Marshall South's manor. Father, one didn't do it. Sister is falsely accusing me." Su Yurou covered her face and cried out in grievance, glaring fiercely at Su Yingxue as if she could rip her mouth off. Chapter 288. The end of being vain. She wronged you? All right, men, go to her courtyard and see if there's any furniture from Red Brocade Lane. Bring it all over. Su Dingheng immediately ordered the steward to take action. Liu Shulan's heart tightened. Soon after, the steward returned with a significant amount of brand new furniture. Su Dingheng looked at the pieces of new furniture and pointed angrily at Su Yurou. "Is your sister falsely accusing you? Is it unjust? The furniture I provided for you previously was of excellent quality. Why did you need to replace so much without reason?" Box novel. Su Yurou whimpered and didn't dare to speak. Su Yingxue raised an eyebrow nonchalantly. She knew that once Su Dingheng investigated, he would realize that Su Yurou had broken the furniture herself and then bought new items. Su Dingheng felt his blood pressure rising. His face turned ashen, and he clutched his chest. "Men, return all these items immediately, along with the clothing, jewelry she purchased, and the gifts she sent to others. Retrieve everything for me." This amounted to over 10,000 taels of silver, a significant sum. "Father, I don't want to return them." Su Yurou covered her face. To her, these items were a matter of pride. It was her way of competing with Su Yingxue, something that she had struggled to buy to surpass her. Among them was a luminous pearl on a golden hairpin that was even larger than Su Yingxue's. She couldn't bear to part with them. "I'll beat you to death." Su Dingheng picked up a whip and was about to strike her. Liu Shulan rushed over, and the lash hit her instead, causing her skin to break and bleed. Tears welled up in Liu Shulan's eyes. "Marquis, if you want to punish someone, punish me alone. It's because I failed to discipline her properly that Rua behaved this way. It has nothing to do with eldest young miss. Please, Marquis, only punish me." Her mention of Su Yingxue was a reminder to Su Dingheng that it wasn't just Su Yurou who had made mistakes. Su Yingxue had spent even more than Su Yurou. A cold, disdainful smile curled on Su Yingxue's lips. Before Su Dingheng could proceed with any punishment, the steward announced that some guests had arrived outside. Su Yingxue's uncles and aunts had come to express their gratitude and deliver gifts. They thanked Su Yingxue for gifting her cousins with new clothing and jewelry and expressed their desire for closer family ties and mutual support in the future. Su Dingheng examined the valuable gifts. Importantly, he hadn't maintained good relationships with his siblings. After they had separated households, the distance between them had grown. Despite being the Marquis of Martial South, the others were doing well. If they could support each other in the future, the benefits would go beyond what money could offer. After some thought, Su Dingheng softened his tone and told Su Yingxue, "You may stand up." Su Yingxue rose to her feet slowly, and Su Dingheng even offered words of comfort. "Yingxue, one acted in anger and punished you earlier. You've been considerate and handled things appropriately. Thank you for your praise, Father," Su Yingxue responded humbly. "It's not fair. Father, she spent more money than me and even kept some for herself. Father should punish her." Su Yurou shouted at the top of her lungs. "You dare to say that? Can your sister spend the same amount of money as you? She's showing love for her sister, and all your cousins will be grateful to her. What about you? You're only pursuing vanity. You want to show off in front of your sister and receive flattery from your friend." Su Dingheng exposed her without mercy. Su Yurou felt as if her face was being stripped away, inch by inch. Chapter 289, a copy of the account book, presented to Grandpa. She had never thought that the person who did this was not Su Yingxue, but her daddy who had doted on her since she was young. A sense of resentment rose in her heart. Is it wrong for me to be vain? I'm the daughter of Marquis Manor, so why can't I enjoy the same treatment as Su Yingxue? Why can't one spend the Marquis Manor money? I must spend it. Rua, you're crazy. Liu Shulan covered her mouth with all her might and warned her with her eyes not to speak again. Su Dingheng's expression darkened instantly. You dare to disobey me? You. Su Dingheng was so angry that he could not say anything. However, Su Yingxue knew that Su Yurou's words had poked Su Dingheng's anger and would only make him angrier. Box novel. At this moment, Su Dingheng was feeling the pain of losing money. Su Yurou, it seems that father has spoiled you, allowing you to be so extravagant and not think about the Marquis Manor. Can you earn a tael of silver yourself? Father has painstakingly taken care of this family. Are you going to squander all the savings of the Marquis Manor? Marquis, it's all Rao's fault. Please don't hold it against her. Liu Shulan covered Su Yurou's mouth with all her might to prevent her from saying anything that would anger Su Dingheng. When she saw Su Yingxue standing calmly at the side, a vicious glint flashed across her eyes. Marquis, Rua doesn't have eldest young miss background and ability, so naturally, her horizons can't compare to eldest young miss. I will discipline her strictly in the future. Your intentions are good, but sister has already spent the money. There's no reason to return it. Su Yingxue sighed softly as if she had nothing to do with this. Su Yingxue, you're talking nonsense. I only used 5,000 taels, and the rest was squandered by you. Don't even think about framing me. Su Yurou broke free from Liu Shulan's hand and screamed. Liu Shulan quickly covered her mouth again. Don't you think you've caused enough trouble? Su Yurou's mouth was covered, and she could only whimper. Su Yingxue shrugged innocently. I did spend the rest of the money, but it's all the Marquis Manor's account. If Daddy wants me to bear this money, I won't reject it. After all, benefits were still the most important. When Su Dingheng heard Su Yingxue's words, he immediately turned around and asked, Are you willing to pay this money? Your clinic. He originally wanted to say that the clinic and the grain and oil shop must have made a lot of money. It was better for her to pay this money than for him to lose money. Su Yingxue's eyes were filled with cold mockery, but it disappeared in an instant. She smiled lightly. Of course. I'll go to the clinic tomorrow and ask Manager Qi to fill in the money. I'll put this money in the clinic's account. This was originally a very obvious matter, but Su Dingheng felt that something was wrong. Liu Shulan's brain worked faster than Su Dingheng's. She immediately thought that if she went through the clinic's accounts, the clinic would spread the news. Su Dingheng was a person who cared about his face. He still needed Su Yingxue's money for the expenses of the manor. Wasn't this a slap to his face? Liu Shulan stared hatefully at Su Yingxue. This vicious woman. Su Dingheng quickly understood and immediately waved his hand. No. This money can't go through the clinic's account. This money, he gritted his teeth. I'll pay it out of the Marquis Manor's account. It was all his property. If it was less than 10,000 taels, then so be it. Su Yingxue chuckled. Yes, I will record this down as usual and make a copy. One will order someone to send it to grandfather. What? You? Are you stupid? Why are you giving the accounts of the Marquis Manor to father? Su Dingheng immediately panicked. Chapter 290. Defeat Su Yurou. If his hot-tempered father found out about this, he wouldn't easily forgive him. He had never allowed Liu Shulan to enter Marquis Manor. Su Yingxue's eyes brimmed with innocence. Ever since I took over the Marquis Manor, I've been double-checking all the accounts. Firstly, to prevent any tampering, and secondly, because grandfather is on the front lines, has also concerned about family matters. I want grandfather to be informed about the situation in the Marquis Manor, to put his mind at ease. Her words were seamless, and no one could find fault with them. Even if Su Dingheng wanted to punish her, he couldn't find a reason. Box novel. However, this debt couldn't be left on Marquis Manor's account. After reflecting on his loss, Su Dingheng gritted his teeth. This bill goes to me. You don't need to record it in Marquis Manor's account. This. Father, is it okay with such a large sum of money? Su Yingxue appeared worried on the surface, but inside, she was sneering. Su Dingheng's private assets were more substantial. You don't need to ask too much. I will handle this bill. You just focus on managing Marquis Manor's accounts. Su Dingheng looked agitated. Su Yingxue nodded obediently. After Su Dingheng settled the bill, he returned to the front hall. When he faced Liu Shulan and her daughter, he looked livid, as if he wanted to devour them. Although he had expelled Su Yingxue, she stood outside and listened. She could hear Su Yurou's agonizing screams. When she came out with Yihan, the latter was still trembling. Marquis spoils second young miss so much, yet has willing to punish her like this. When Su Yurou was dragged out, her skin was torn and bleeding, much like what had happened to Su Yingxue in the past. Su Yingxue coldly curled her lips. Marquis dotes on Su Yurou because she knows how to flatter him. Now he's punishing her because Su Yurou has infringed upon his interests and caused him to lose a substantial amount of money. Hence, no amount of favoritism could offset Su Yurou's mistakes, especially when Su Dingheng was enraged, and Su Yurou deliberately displayed her greedy side to provoke him. This was a major offense. This time, Marquis has suffered a loss due to Su Yurou. He not only lost a significant amount of money, but you also reminded him that even though the master is on the front lines, he's the one who makes decisions in this family. Regardless of Marquis' stature, he can't outmaneuver the master. Yihan admired Su Yingxue. She had come up with the idea of giving the account book to her grandfather. This was the final move to strangle Su Dingheng. Su Dingheng might not be afraid of anything, but he couldn't defy his father. Master had never allowed Liu Shulan to enter the house, and this money had been spent by the mother and daughter, further fueling Master's aversion. Consequently, Master would be even more dissatisfied with Su Dingheng. Jillian's thoughts were correct, precisely Su Yingxue's original plan. However, she didn't explain it comprehensively. Not allowing father to use Marquis Manor's money serves another purpose. What is it? Yihan inquired with curiosity, thinking there was more to learn. A cold glint shone in Su Yingxue's eyes. The entire family property of Marquis Manor belongs only to my brother and me. Others should forget about touching a single cent. Su Yurou and Su Jinxian would be removed. The grudges from her past life needed to be settled in this one. This was the first time Yihan saw such profound hatred in Su Yingxue. She didn't understand and didn't dare to ask, but she knew that no matter what Su Yingxue ordered, she would do it. After Su Yingxue returned to the accounting room, she asked Yihan to relay a message to old Madame Zhong. She told her that Su Yurou had many pieces of jewelry and silver, which, if sold, could fetch a substantial amount of silver. Chapter 291. The Dead in the Clinic. This rumor spread throughout the mansion and eventually reached Su Dingheng's ears in the evening. Su Dingheng was having his meal in the house with the two top courtesans. When he heard the news, the two top courtesans started to talk again. Su Dingheng immediately waved his hand and instructed the steward to go to Su Yurou's room and sell all the valuable jewelry and items in exchange for silver. As the steward took items from Su Yurou's quarters, Su Yurou, in a disheveled state, chased after him, exclaiming, "Those are my jewelry. My golden hairpin. You can't take them away. My luminous pearl. Give it back to me. Give it back to me." Su Yurou couldn't catch up with the steward and ended up falling into the mud, consuming a mouthful of mud and moss. She was already seriously injured, and her mental state was greatly affected. She collapsed and fainted. Dr. Liu Shulan gave her medicine, but she did not wake up for 2 days. She wanted to seek Su Dingheng's sympathy for her condition, but the two courtesans had received the jewelry Su Yingxue had given them. This left Su Dingheng in a daze, unable to pay any attention to Liu Shulan. Box novel. Liu Shulan stood outside the courtyard, listening to the lascivious sounds coming from Su Dingheng and the two women, grinding her teeth in frustration. She had never felt such intense hatred for someone, nor had she ever encountered such a formidable adversary. Sitting by Su Yurou's bedside, Liu Shulan held her hand with deep concern and vowed, "Rua, your suffering won't be in vain." She summoned old Madame Qiu to discuss a plan. Old Madame Qiu said, "Currently, Su Yingxue is in the limelight. She's the legitimate daughter of the Marquis Manor, and she has the Emperor's favor. We can't confront her directly. If we want to provide the second young miss with an opportunity to recover, we need to create a situation that will keep the eldest young miss occupied and unable to take care of herself. Only then can you free up your hands, madam." Liu Shulan nodded, agreeing, "That makes sense. But the incident that would make Su Yingxue unable to take care of herself, it's only her clinic." Su Yingxue was tough-hearted, and there were not many things she genuinely cared about. Apart from her mother's clinic, there wasn't much to target. Liu Shulan's eyes flickered, and suddenly, a cold light flashed. She whispered something into old Madame Qiu's ear. After Su Yingxue had finished her responsibilities at the Marquis Manor, she intended to visit Vermilion Bird Street to inspect the newly renovated clinic. Liang Jin was also planning to visit personally since the clinic was something the emperor held in high regard. The two of them coincidentally met in front of the clinic. Liang Jin said, "Within half a month, the renovation will be complete. I will then personally request the emperor to inscribe a plaque for Miss Su. The name Tongchang Medical Center will be renowned." Su Yingxue offered a slight bow and replied, "Thank you, Lord Liang, for your diligent efforts on behalf of my clinic." Liang Jin responded, "It's not solely for your benefit. I also hope that the people of Jiangdu City can receive better medical care. Though it's impossible for everyone to be free from illness, if everyone can access healthcare and receive better treatment, they will lead better lives." Su Yingxue expressed her gratitude. With some free time on her hands, Su Yingxue decided to visit the newly opened clinic in the western part of the city. However, upon her arrival, she found a crowd gathered at the entrance, indicating some sort of incident had occurred. Su Yingxue pushed through the crowd to get a closer look and spotted an elderly woman at the entrance, accompanied by a child, sobbing. The old woman muttered incoherently, "Give my son's life back. This heartless clinic, give my son's life back. My son still has a child, and as an old woman, how can I go on living?" Before Su Yingxue could fully grasp the situation, the clinic's attendants came out and began to expel the crowd. Chapter 292. I want to do an autopsy. He kicked the old lady without any hesitation, saying, "Get lost. Sell your misery elsewhere. Don't disturb our clinic doing business." Even the commoners on the street couldn't stand this barbaric behavior, and Su Yingxue herself rolled up her sleeves. She planned to teach this errand boy a lesson. She had never been to the new clinic before and was surprised to find such a person working there. Don't use violence. The old lady is naturally heartbroken for her son. Granny, please get up and speak. Don't worry, our clinic is not unethical. A worker in the clinic's uniform came out to mediate, assisting the old lady and showing great care and consideration in his words and actions. Box novel. Su Yingxue's expression softened slightly. Upon closer inspection, she realized that this person was Lai San. Lai San helped the old lady to her feet and noticed Su Yingxue in the crowd. Just as he was about to call someone over, he seemed to hesitate, eventually guiding the old lady to an empty room first. Su Yingxue entered the clinic and found Manager Qi. Manager Qi appeared troubled, most likely due to the old lady's situation. Upon seeing Su Yingxue entering with a somber expression, he whispered, "Miss, did you see what happened at the door just now?" Su Yingxue nodded and inquired, "Yes, what's going on?" Manager Qi sighed and proceeded to provide Su Yingxue with a detailed account of the entire incident. As Su Yingxue listened, her brow furrowed slightly. She was aware that even though this was a branch of Tongchang Medical Center, Manager Qi was meticulous in ensuring everything was done correctly. However, the death of the old lady's son was quite suspicious. The son had been suffering from tuberculosis, a potentially life-threatening illness. Yet, he had been under treatment for many years, and upon coming to Tongchang Medical Center, he passed away after taking just one dose of medicine. With no evidence from the deceased, the old lady brought her only grandson to the clinic's entrance every day, wailing in misery. Even Manager Qi couldn't come up with a solution. The worker who had kicked the old lady seemed to have grown weary of her constant cries, which led to him pushing her away. After a moment of contemplation, Su Yingxue said, "First, let's address the issue with that worker. Deduct his monthly salary and assign him to handle the transportation of medicinal herbs. If any similar incidents occur in the future regarding patients, we will expel him from the clinic. Tongchang Medical Center cannot tolerate such brutality." Manager Qi nodded and agreed, "Yes, I share responsibility for this matter. One will also have my salary halved this month." Su Yingxue couldn't help but smile with a touch of helplessness and added, "For now, let's set aside discussions about your salary. First, let's consider how to resolve the situation with the old lady. Her only son has passed away, and now she only has her grandson left. She is likely to cause disturbances at the clinic." Manager Qi sighed in front of Su Yingxue. Recognizing that they needed to address the issue at its root, Su Yingxue decided to visit and speak with the old lady. However, the old lady was exceptionally stubborn. She clung to her 5 or 6-year-old grandson, wiping her tears, and declared, "If you don't compensate me, one won't leave even if one die. You're the ones who killed my son." Su Yingxue reassured her, saying, "Grandma, Tongchang Medical Center never causes harm to patients. Could you please tell me where your son's body is? One need to perform a thorough examination to determine the cause of his death." However, the old lady reacted as though she had been electrocuted. She stared fiercely at Su Yingxue and declared, "You've killed my son. You won't even leave his corpse in peace. No, one won't allow it. You can't disturb my son's rest." Su Yingxue narrowed her eyes, sensing that something was amiss with the old lady. She tried to reason with her, saying, "Grandma, if you won't allow me to examine the body, I won't be able to determine the cause of your son's death. Without this information, our clinic won't be able to address the compensation issue, which wouldn't be in your best interest." Chapter 293, Find the Grave. Why can't it be resolved? An eye for an eye, a life for a life, a debt for a debt. You've taken my son's life, so you either give his life back or compensate me with money. I'm a poor, lonely widow, and my only son used to support me. Now that has gone, if you don't compensate me, I'll go to the county magistrate and file a complaint against you. I'll accuse you of disregard for human life." She was fierce, her eyes red, and she seemed determined to go down with Su Yingxue. But this only fueled Su Yingxue's suspicion. She took a pen and paper, quickly wrote down 2 words, and presented them to the old lady. "Do you recognize these characters?" The old lady, coming from a humble background and having endured many hardships, had never learned to read or write. She angrily tore the paper apart. I don't recognize them. Don't think that knowing a few words will allow you to bully us. We're not easy to bully. Well, go tell Heavenly Lord. Is that so? Su Yingxue raised an eyebrow. Illiterate as she was, the old lady could still use words like disregard for human life. Box novel. This made Su Yingxue suspect that the old lady might indeed have a powerful protector. She instructed Manager Qi to find the old lady a place to stay. Then, she and Ziwei went to the village where the old lady lived to conduct an investigation. Upon arriving in the village, Su Yingxue observed the dire poverty of the old lady's home. The house was bare, and even the walls leaked wind. For a family in such a situation, a member suffering from tuberculosis was indeed a terrible catastrophe. She couldn't help but feel sympathy. However, she couldn't find the corpse of the old lady's son in their home. She initially thought the old lady might be hiding it. Searching the surroundings of the house, she couldn't detect the smell of a corpse. In contrast, Ziwei disappeared for a while and then returned with information. Found it. Found the corpse? Su Yingxue inquired. Ziwei nodded and led her to a hill outside the village. There were dozens of graves here. Most likely, the villagers had died and were buried here. Moreover, they were buried in an irregular pattern. Graves of all sizes were scattered all over the place. Ziwei brought her to a grave. There was no tombstone in this grave. There was a stick stuck in the grave, and a piece of cloth was wrapped around the stick. It looked lonely. Pointing at the grave, Su Yingxue asked, "Is this the grave of the old lady's son?" "How can you be sure? The cloth on the grave is from her house." Ziwei still held a piece of cloth torn from a bedsheet in the old lady's house. Su Yingxue compared it with the cloth on the stick and confirmed they were from the same piece. She marveled, "You notice such small details?" Ziwei's expression remained impassive as he replied, "Yes, for the most part." He was brief in his responses, but Su Yingxue understood that it was a fundamental skill for an assassin. When it came to tracking, investigating, and observing, Ziwei excelled in being meticulous and quick. She had only spent a short time in that room, yet Ziwei found the grave of the old lady's son promptly. However, she couldn't bring herself to desecrate someone else's grave. It was an immoral act she couldn't contemplate, even if she were capable of doing it. Returning to the manor with Ziwei, Su Yingxue couldn't help but furrow her brows. Yihan came to tell her that Yihan had sent someone over. He had let someone prepare a new dish tonight and invited Su Yingxue over to eat. Although Su Yingxue was hungry, she was still thinking about the clinic and was not in the mood to go to Yihan's invitation. Anticipating her response, Yihan arrived at the Marquis' manor, his cold demeanor radiating authority. Without a word, he picked her up and took her to the 9th prince's mansion. Su Yingxue sat in front of a table of delicacies and sighed helplessly. "Your Highness, I don't have the mood to eat with you today. The matter at the clinic hasn't been resolved yet." Chapter 294. The clinic was disturbed. What happened in the clinic? Yihan scooped a bowl of soup and carefully placed it in front of her. Su Yingxue pouted. She didn't want to discuss it and ruin her mood, but in front of Yihan, she unconsciously relaxed. The branch of Chengxi Medical Center received a patient with tuberculosis, but he passed away after just one dose of medicine. Now, his elderly mother is demanding compensation, and she won't allow me to perform an autopsy. I suspect there's something suspicious about this. Yihan's eyes grew cold. Someone must be deliberately targeting you. I share your suspicions, but without the ability to perform an autopsy at the moment, one can't determine the cause of death. She possesses the medication residue and the clinic's receipt. For now, one can only accommodate her and plan the next steps. Su Yingxue kept this matter in her thoughts. Yihan affectionately pinched her cheek. "You've lost weight." Box novel. His expression was icy, like a sculpted piece of ice. He seemed dissatisfied with Su Yingxue losing weight. Su Yingxue blushed at his intimate actions. She whispered as she ate, "Girls look better when they're slimmer." "It doesn't look good," Yihan stated seriously. My little dumpling is round. Su Yingxue's face turned crimson. Could he not discuss this? Who hasn't gained weight at some point? However, it would be strange if a man preferred a heavier woman. Su Yingxue sipped her soup and secretly checked her waist and legs. Fortunately, they were still within her control, and she maintained a slender figure. She completed her meal peacefully. The old steward from the prince's mansion politely inquired, "Miss Su, are you satisfied? You've enjoyed the codfish tofu multiple times today. Well, be sure to serve it to you again." "Thank you very much," Su Yingxue said, touched by the courteous treatment in the prince's mansion. The old steward's eyes crinkled as he smiled kindly. "You are the future mistress of the prince's mansion. Naturally, we dare not neglect you." "Future mistress?" Su Yingxue's face was filled with question marks. Before she could fully comprehend, the old steward had already left with a knowing smile. Chu Yihan's familiar presence enveloped her. He pressed his forehead against hers and asked in a magnetic tone, "Why? Don't you want to? You're going to be my future princess." Su Yingxue's heart skipped a beat. This rapid thumping revealed her current state of confusion. She had never imagined that in this lifetime, she would become his princess. In her previous life, she had owed many people, including family and friends. She could wholeheartedly make amends and ensure their well-being in this life. But Chu Yihan, with his immense power and influence, left her unsure of how to compensate him. "Will you be my princess for the rest of your life?" Chu Yihan asked. Seeing her silence, he leaned closer and whispered into her ear, exhaling warmth along with his passionate heart. "All right." After returning to the Marquis' manor, Su Yingxue lay on her bed and replayed the scene where she agreed to Chu Yihan's proposal. The way his eyes lit up was a beautiful sight she had never witnessed in both of her lifetimes. The title of being a princess was an unexpected twist for her. She had never contemplated this possibility, but now, she needed to consider it. Since she had decided to be with Chu Yihan, his enemies would now become her enemies. Once Su Yingxue finished managing the account books, she delegated the responsibilities in the residence to Yilan and instructed old Madame Zhong to keep a watchful eye on them. She hurried to Chengxi Medical Center. The backyard was filled with noise as Lai San led his men to steady the old lady. Manager Qi stood by, earnestly trying to persuade her, "Granny's son, we understand that you've lost your son. I never said we wouldn't help you resolve this matter. What good does it do to keep causing disturbances?" Chapter 295, The Unruly People Cry Bar. "You heartless people, you killed my son and now you want to push me into my grave here. In bringing my grandson with me. Even if I die here, I demand justice," Granny's son shouted while holding the child. Lai San tried to persuade her to return to her room, but she spat at him and didn't allow anyone from the clinic to approach her. Lai San wiped his clothes and grumbled, "It's hard to stay clean." He had been begging for many years, and he was usually covered in dirt. Manager Qi had only recently accepted him to work in the clinic, and he didn't want to dirty his clothes. Box novel. Seeing Granny's son about to spit at Manager Qi, he quickly stepped in to block her. When Su Yingxue witnessed this scene, she understood why Manager Qi had brought Lai San into the clinic. Granny's son was vulgar, and the clinic's apprentices couldn't handle her. The laborious were also afraid to use force, but Lai San had a way to deal with her. Granny's son kept spitting at him, but he wasn't afraid. He even used some words that left Granny's son dizzy and calmed her down. Once she stopped spitting, Lai San allowed Su Yingxue to approach. Su Yingxue stood in front of Manager Qi. Manager Qi cautioned her, "Miss, be careful. This old lady is very stubborn." "It's okay." Su Yingxue's expression remained composed. "Granny's son, right? Your son is named Sun Wangcai. He's 31 years old this year, and he's your only son. He has been suffering from tuberculosis for 5 years and hasn't been cured, correct?" Granny's son's dark face showed wariness. "Yes, so what? He could have lived to be 40 years old, but he ate a medicine from your clinic and died in vain. Your deceitful clinic, return my son." As she spoke, she sat down on the ground and began to wail. Her grandson in her arms seemed to react to the scene and cried out for his father. This situation was causing a headache. Su Yingxue brought over a chair, sat down, and allowed them to cry. She sipped tea while waiting, while Granny Sun and the child were already crying to the point of having dry mouths. The child tried to reach for the tea in Su Yingxue's hand, but Granny Sun didn't stop him. Su Yingxue raised the cup so that he couldn't reach it. You think my clinic's water is safe for your grandson to drink? We have medicines that can harm people. Granny Sun had an odd expression. She immediately pulled the child back and held him tightly, refusing to let him drink water no matter how thirsty he was. Miss, they had all the food we provided them with yesterday, but Granny Sun is still complaining that there's no meat, and she's not satisfied, Manager Qi whispered in Su Yingxue's ear. Su Yingxue smiled faintly. That's even more peculiar. If your son died in my clinic, why are you so willing to stay and eat at my clinic? What if you end up dying in my so-called black-hearted clinic? No one will intervene on your behalf. Granny Sun seemed uneasy. There's the Heavenly Lord in Jiangdu City. Even if I die, someone will stand up for me. She was resolute. This attitude only increased Su Yingxue's suspicion. You're quite confident. Who instructed you to use your son's life to defame the clinic? What defamation? You're the ones who recklessly killed people with your black-hearted treatments. Do you still call this a clinic? You should open a coffin shop. Granny Sun yelled menacingly. She still wanted to rush out with her grandson and confront anyone who stopped her. She maintained a defiant and arrogant demeanor. Su Yingxue had Lai San at her side, so she didn't resort to unreasonable tactics. Once Lai San managed to calm Granny Sun, Su Yingxue spoke slowly. If you insist on this and refuse to reveal who instructed you, I'll take you to the capital prefecture, where we'll conduct an autopsy on your son. Let's see if the capital governor lord can compel you to speak. Chapter 296. Chu Yihan assisted Granny Sun was left stunned. It was unclear if she was frightened or lost in thought. After a moment of being in a daze, she pushed her young grandson aside, propped up her thin and hunched body, and yelled at Su Yingxue, "You're pushing us poor folks into a corner. We might not be able to fight back, but we still believe in justice. The heavens will intervene, my son, mother is here." With determination, she rushed towards a large medicine vat nearby. Bang! Fortunately, Lai San was quick to react. He rushed in front of Granny Sun and knocked her away, preventing her head from exploding on the medicine vat. Box novel. There were more than 10 medicinal vats filled with medicinal herbs in the backyard. Granny Sun used all her strength to knock against them, and no matter how hard she tried, her head was still bleeding. While she didn't lose her life in the collision, she lay on the ground, with a few wounds on her face. Manager Qi, restrain her, don't let her move. Su Yingxue immediately gave the order. Then, she approached Lai San, helping him to his feet and checking his pulse. Are you okay? Lai San, with his sallow and emaciated face, appeared somewhat uncomfortable. He withdrew his hand, saying, Miss, don't let me dirty you. I'm fine. What do you mean by dirty? You are from my clinic. I'll attend to your injuries first. Su Yingxue knew that Lai San must have sustained bruises from his collision with Granny Sunday. She fetched a bottle of medicine from the counter and handed it to Lai San. Rest well for the next few days. Thanks for what you did. Miss, you're too kind. Lai San was moved to the point of tears. Ever since Su Yingxue saved him from the deadly plague a while ago, he had made up his mind to become a better person. With Manager Qi's compassionate acceptance, he had been studying and living better at the clinic. Now, with Su Yingxue treating him so kindly, he felt a strong desire to repay her kindness. After applying the medicine, he quietly followed Su Yingxue to the backyard. Meanwhile, on Granny Sun's side, Manager Qi had already arranged for someone to apply the medicine. Her old, yellowed eyes remained fixed on Su Yingxue, still filled with enmity. Beside her, the child continued to tug at her sleeve and cry, uttering incomprehensible words. Su Yingxue gazed at Granny Sun, deep in thought. The person who had instigated Granny Sun had thought things through thoroughly. Without examining her son's body, she wouldn't be able to determine the cause of his death. Granny Sun was a strong-willed farmer. If pushed too far, she might even have the courage to harm herself. Su Yingxue realized that if Granny Sun were to die here today, regardless of how she handled Granny Sun's remains, it could become a source of leverage against her. This was indeed a challenging situation. Miss Su, Your Highness sent me with a message. You may proceed with the autopsy. Mochi descended from the sky and conveyed Chu Yihan's order. Su Yingxue was puzzled. An autopsy? Did Your Highness order the grave to be exhumed? She realized it was a mistake to reveal this to Chu Yihan so easily. While she was confident he would help, if he dug up the grave and word got out, it could harm his reputation and be exploited by others as ammunition in the court. Mochi let out a light snort, his expression somewhat proud. Naturally, Your Highness conducted it openly. Openly? Su Yingxue's lips twitched. Digging up someone else's grave and calling it open? Truly a divine act by Your Highness. Mochi, noticing the peculiar look in her eyes, decided to tell her after indulging in his moment of self-satisfaction. Chapter 297. Solve things. Mochi noticed the perplexed expression on her face and, after satisfying his desire to boast, he explained, Your Highness selected an auspicious location, invested a considerable sum, and informed the villagers to relocate the graves of their departed loved ones. The villagers voluntarily participated in the exhumation and, incidentally, dug out Sun Wangkei's grave. Su Yingxue's eyes brightened. Your Highness is truly remarkable. Of course. Mochi proudly raised his chin. Had there ever been a moment when his master was not impressive? Mochi thoughtfully informed Su Yingxue, Your Highness arranged for the villagers to relocate the graves in your name, Miss Su. Now, with Granny Sun, you can proceed with the autopsy. Su Yingxue nodded without delay. She instructed Manager Qi to accompany Granny Sun and the child and swiftly departed for the village beyond the city. Lai San followed as well, ensuring he stayed close to Granny Sun to prevent any impulsive acts on her part. The group soon arrived at the village outside the city. Here, dozens of households, all impoverished tenants, had contributed efforts to move their departed relatives' graves. Some had even received compensation, motivating them to work even harder. Especially when they were moving their relatives' graves and were paid, they naturally worked even harder. Granny Sun came to the hill and saw that the graves here had been dug out. She exclaimed anxiously, What's going on? Why are you all digging up these graves? Old Madam Sun, you just returned and might not be aware. There's a benevolent soul in the city who bought a piece of land for a new cemetery and helped relocate the graves of all the deceased from our village. Everyone is busy. Granny Sun's expression suddenly changed, and she reacted with urgency. You've gone too far. Who allowed you to disturb my son's grave? My son. The well-meaning neighbor, who was pushed by Granny Sun, stumbled and rolled his eyes in response. Madwoman. You don't appreciate a kind deed. Let's go, let's do our work. Father's grave hasn't been buried yet. Ignore this madwoman. The man carrying the coffin accidentally bumped into the man's arm. The four of them hoisted the coffin and proceeded to the new burial site. Granny Sun rushed to her son's grave, which had already been dug up, and a fine-quality coffin lay on the ground. Granny Sun immediately hugged it and glared warily at Su Yingxue. None of you can touch my son, don't even think about it. You can't bully us orphans and widows just because you have more people. Son. Mother is powerless. You won't rest in peace, and you're going to be exhumed. My son, Su Yingxue led her group, but before they could draw near, Granny Sun was already wailing, drawing the attention of numerous onlookers. These villagers were from the same community and often interacted with one another. Seeing Granny Sun in such a pitiful state on the ground, a few strong and youthful men brandished their shovels and hoes in Su Yingxue's direction. Who are you? How dare you harass Granny Sun? Brothers, it's all a misunderstanding. We're from Tongchang Medical Center. Today, we're here to escort Granny Sun back and assist in relocating her son's grave. Please, don't harm anyone. Lai San was well versed in dealing with people, especially those from the lower strata of society. Upon hearing his words and recognizing that he wasn't a high-ranking official, their wariness lessened. Su Yingxue cast an appreciative glance at Lai San before returning her gaze to Granny Sunday. Granny Sun, your family's situation is presumably not ideal, and this coffin couldn't have been purchased without 20 taels of silver. How did you ensure your son's peaceful rest in this coffin? Chapter 298, Su Yingxue's Magnanimity. Granny Sun revealed a vulnerability and became flustered. I found it. It's not worth much. Found a coffin? Grandma, in this day and age, people may find money lying around, but who finds such a large coffin? Did you perhaps find it at a coffin shop? Which coffin shop would be willing to discard such a fine coffin? Manager Qi chimed in. They didn't deliberately lower their voices. As a result, the young men who were helping Granny Sun also expressed confusion. This coffin appears valuable no matter how you look at it. Granny, where did you find it? They were curious and wanted to see if there was anything else to be found. Go, go, go. Why are you picking up coffins? Has your son passed away? Do you need a coffin? My son was poisoned by this group of people. If you want to find something, go ask them for the coffin, especially this young lady here. She's the legitimate daughter of the Marquis Manor and oversees it. She's loaded with money. Go find her. Granny Sun couldn't restrain herself and said many things she shouldn't have. Su Yingxue chuckled. Granny Sun, from the moment we met, I never disclosed my identity. You didn't even ask my name, yet you somehow know that I'm the legitimate daughter of the Marquis Manor and that I oversee the Marquis Manor. The person who instructed you must be from the Marquis Manor, right? Granny Sun's eyes darted around nervously. She recalled what someone had taught her and shouted, everyone knows about the clinic opened by the Marquis Manor's legitimate daughter in Jiangdu City. Previously, there was a deadly plague that killed many people, and now it's taken my son's life. Bullies. We, the common folks, can't contend with this group of high-ranking officials. We're suffering. Everyone present, much like Granny Sun's family, hailed from humble backgrounds. Some of the men had tattered clothing. Granny Sun's words resonated deeply with them, and coupled with their resentment of the wealthy, they pointed their hoes toward Su Yingxue. You people of privilege who live comfortably have no qualms about causing deaths. What more do you want now? If we don't report you to the Heavenly Lord, you'd better leave and stop mistreating Granny. Su Yingxue's brows were tightly knitted. When this group of people became rude, they could not make a move. Otherwise, it would only make the other party hate them even more. However, since the other party was a young man, he was also reasonable. She might as well lay the matter out. She walked in front of the hose wielded by these strong men, held her head high, and proclaimed, I am indeed Su Yingxue, the legitimate daughter of the Marquis of Marshall South's Manor, and I am a doctor at Tongchang Medical Center. Granny Sun's son passed away after taking medication from my clinic, and I deeply apologize for this. But I, Su Yingxue, swear on my life that my clinic will never treat human lives callously or intentionally harm any patient. That's why I'm here personally to open the coffin and examine the body to provide justice for the deceased son Wangcai. If he indeed died due to medication from my clinic, then one, Su Yingxue, will personally atone for it with my life. Tongchang Medical Center will take care of Granny Sun and her descendants for the rest of their lives. Su Yingxue's words left everyone astounded. The legitimate daughter of the Marquis Manor being willing to pay with her life for an ordinary farmer was already bewildering. Furthermore, taking care of Granny Sun and her descendants for their entire lives was an exceptionally responsible offer. Are you truly here for an autopsy? The young man who had stopped Su Yingxue earlier put down his hoe and asked. What else can I do? The deceased deserves respect, but it's only by ascertaining the cause of his death and why he died that we can provide justice. Su Yingxue's words were forceful and determined. Although these farmers weren't educated, they understood the logic. Two burly men approached Granny Sun and advised her, Granny, don't stand in her way. Miss Su is a good person. Well, let her perform the autopsy. If your son was truly harmed by her clinic, we won't leave you to suffer alone. Chapter 299. Open an autopsy, go away. What do you, these foolish men, understand? That woman has a heart as cruel as a snake and scorpion. She killed my son, and now she wants to destroy his body, and obliterate all evidence. Granny Sun sat down on the ground, her cries filled with despair. Poor my son. Powerless, and now, even in death, you are to be desecrated by these people, just so you can't rest in peace, my son. Granny Sun's wails were heart-wrenching, leaving the villagers unsure of how to proceed. Su Yingxue's expression darkened slightly. Granny Sun, if you insist on preventing me from opening the coffin to examine the body, I will go and invite Lord Liang from the capital prefecture. He is known for his impartiality, and everyone in Jiangdu City is aware of it. He won't favor me and will ensure justice is served. This. No. No. Granny Sun waved her hands in horror. The person who had looked for her had instructed her not to cause a ruckus at the government office and not to let anyone open her son's coffin. Grandma, you keep insisting that your son was murdered. Isn't reporting it to the authorities the best course of action? The honest villager scratched his head, not comprehending Granny Sun's actions. Su Yingxue stood nearby, showing no urgency. The simple villagers here had a knack for exposing Granny Sun's deceit. You're all blindly jeering. You've all been bewitched by that woman. Oh my. Granny Sun might lack other talents, but she excelled at making a scene. She stood in front of the coffin, and anyone who approached her was met with her threat to throw herself into the coffin. This made the villagers hesitant to approach her. Even Su Yingxue couldn't publicly apprehend her. As things started looking dire, just when Su Yingxue was in a difficult situation, a woman dressed in rough clothing rushed out and picked up the child next to Granny Sunday. She knelt beside her, wiping away tears, and tried to convince her. Mother, please don't be stubborn. Let Miss Su perform the autopsy. Yingxue would feel uneasy if he saw this from heaven. You. Why have you returned? Granny Sun shoved her daughter-in-law away, scolding her in their local dialect, filthy thing. Didn't I tell you to leave? Don't come out until I'm dead. Mother, Yingxue is gone, and now it's just you and the child. Where should I go? Yingxue didn't have many days left. Miss Su's clinic didn't harm anyone. Please don't act irrationally. The woman cried, her tears flowing sincerely. Granny Sun, filled with anger, shouted, What nonsense are you saying? The person had promised her an ingot of gold when the task was completed. It was real gold. She had never seen anything like it in her entire life. As long as she could hold that gold in her hands, her grandson could have a good life for the rest of his days. Even if it meant giving up her own life, it would be worth it. Mother, take a look at this. In a corner that no one could see, the woman slipped something into Granny Sun's hand. Granny Sun was taken aback and then became visibly embarrassed. Granny Sun, are you still going to stop me? Su Yingxue asked, noticing the change in her expression. Granny Sun's face turned ashen as she stepped aside. She remained silent. Her face was grim, but she no longer wept. Although Su Yingxue was unsure where this daughter-in-law had come from, no one prevented her from opening the coffin and examining the body. Several young adults from the village, who remembered her as the benevolent person who helped relocate graves, even volunteered to open the coffin for her. Sun Wangkei's corpse was removed, and Su Yingxue donned gloves to conduct a meticulous examination. She concluded that Sun Yingxue did not have many days left to live, and he had indeed consumed the medicine prescribed by Tongchang Medical Center. However, the cause of death was his unauthorized self-increase of the dosage, which led to an untimely demise. Chapter 300. Catch the Mastermind. After Su Yingxue finished her examination, she placed the corpse back. She provided the villagers with silver and instructed them to bury Sun Yingxue in a new cemetery. As they watched Sun Wangkei's coffin being carried away, Manager Qi was filled with questions. Miss, this. Why didn't you leave the body behind for Lord Liang to inspect? No need. Disturbing the deceased once is already disrespectful. Su Yingxue also asked him to buy some offerings to place on Sun Wanque's new grave. At this moment, she visited Granny Sun's house. This was her second visit to the destitute wooden house. Su Yingxue's gaze carried a chill. Granny Sun was afraid when she saw her. Although her earlier outburst of crying had momentarily disoriented Su Yingxue, she had ultimately unraveled the truth. Granny Sun, what is the truth? When do you plan to come clean with me? Su Yingxue raised an eyebrow, and her gaze carried a strong sense of coercion. Granny Sun had previously dared to make a scene with Su Yingxue, assuming her daughter-in-law was still around. But now that their secret was exposed, she shrunk like a quail. Eldest young miss, you are formidable. Don't lower yourself to the level of us lowly people. Let our family of 3 live a peaceful life. Su Yingxue smiled. Do I look like a fool to you? The child in Granny Sun's arms shook his head and said firmly, no, be good. Here's some candy for you. Su Yingxue produced a bag of sweets from her pocket and handed it to the child. Suddenly, Su Yingxue sensed a dark figure moving behind her. She turned and said, I'll buy it for you after I'm done. The dark figure discreetly retreated. Granny Sun and her family observed Su Yingxue's actions with curiosity. Su Yingxue had no intention of explaining further. She simply inquired, do you want to live in peace, or do you want to argue with me? Granny Sun's daughter-in-law had been cautioned not to confront Su Yingxue, so she promptly responded, Miss Su, we won't argue with you. Well, tell you whatever you want to know. My mother, she was manipulated. Someone promised us gold, persuaded us to expedite Wanque's death, and coerced Granny to visit the clinic to extort money from you. Why did you reveal everything? Granny Sun pulled her daughter-in-law closer and whispered, that person warned us that if the truth came to light, our entire family would be killed. Mother, can't you see? Miss Su is even more frightening than them. Granny Sun's heart trembled as she observed Su Yingxue. This young miss, who appeared to be about 15 or 16 years old, shattered her preconceptions. She had believed that young girls would be the easiest to manipulate and would crumble under her cries. However, this young girl exhibited remarkable composure. Do you remember what the person who instructed you looked like? Su Yingxue took a step closer. The pressure emanating from her sent the child into a candy-dropping shock. I remember, but I don't know who she is, Granny Sun replied, frightened by Su Yingxue. She huddled on her brick bed. That old woman is so fierce. She warned that if the truth was revealed and one dared to confess to you, both my grandson and one would be killed. I promise that you and your grandson won't be harmed. However, one need you to describe that person's appearance. For example, how old does that old woman appear? What's her physique like? What color were her clothes? What did her face look like? Su Yingxue gestured roughly. She understood that Granny Sun was illiterate and wouldn't be able to draw a portrait, so she asked her to provide a verbal description. Chapter 301, Report to the Authorities. Arrest him. Granny Sun made her best effort to remember and then described it to Su Yingxue with gestures and words. That woman was in her 30s or 40s, looking fierce and with a mole on her face. She was wearing purple clothes and even had jewelry on. We, the villagers, had never seen such opulence. When the woman gave her a silver ingot as soon as she arrived, Granny Sun was left stunned. Later, the woman mentioned that Granny Sun's son, Yingxue, didn't have many days left to live. Once Granny Sun sorted out this matter, the woman would give her another gold ingot. If she passed away in the clinic, the woman would give 2 gold ingots to her daughter-in-law. Granny Sun thought about her age and her son being gone, leaving no one to earn a living. Her grandson would go hungry. If she could trade her and her son's lives for her grandson's lifetime of security, she was more than willing. Therefore, after discussing it with her son, they agreed to this arrangement. Little did they know, I'll send people to protect your daughter-in-law and grandson, but Granny Sun, you must come with me to the Marquis manor. I need you to identify the woman, Su Yingxue stated calmly. Granny Sun's daughter-in-law was still somewhat frightened. Miss Su, my mother didn't intend to harm you. Please spare her. Even if she was coerced, she still caused harm, Su Yingxue asserted. Granny Sun's family was undoubtedly pitiable, but when they couldn't survive, they turned to harming her and the clinic. That was still a wrongdoing. Granny Sun's daughter-in-law continued to wipe her tears. Granny Sun looked at the child in her arms and comforted her. As long as my grandson is fine, it doesn't matter whether I live or die. Su Yingxue left the room and instructed Manager Qi to arrange for Granny Sun's grandson and daughter-in-law. She then covertly had Granny Sun transported back to the Marquis manor. Manager Qi asked with concern, "Miss, why don't we report this to the authorities? We have concrete evidence this time, and we can certainly uncover who harmed you." "I already know who it is," Su Yingxue said with a sharp twist of her lips. "Who?" Manager Qi's eyes widened, and he watched Su Yingxue's expression, venturing a guess. "Is it someone from the Marquis manor? Are they deliberately harming Miss?" Su Yingxue didn't clarify but instead instructed him, "Go to the capital prefecture and file an official report. Describe the case clearly, stating that the culprit is within the Marquis manor. Ask Lord Liang to come to the Marquis manor and handle the case justly." "Yes. We'll do it immediately." Su Yingxue and Manager Qi went their separate ways. Upon her return to the Marquis manor, Su Yingxue remained silent. Later that night, Yihan came to report on the situation within the Marquis manor over the past 2 days. During these last 2 days, Marquis didn't visit the courtesan Belle's quarters and instead rested in Lady Liu's Qingxin court. "Miss, is Marquis favoring Lady Liu and her daughter once again?" Yihan furrowed her brow with worry. Looking at the account book, Su Yingxue let out a cold laugh. "When has he not been partial?" During this period, Yihan began to say but realized that Su Dingheng had recently shown particular appreciation for Su Yingxue. Upon further thought, it was because Su Yingxue had been managing the Marquis manor efficiently and successfully, which earned her Su Dingheng's praise. But it wasn't from the heart. Jillian's gaze turned icy, and she expressed her resentment. "Marquis has never genuinely cared for you, Miss." "Yes, because of my mother," Su Yingxue replied as she closed the account book, her eyes flashing with a sharp edge. She had only recently come to a realization. In her previous life, her foolishness accounted for 99% of her disaster, but the remaining 1%, her father's bias, played a significant role. Su Dingheng was pleased when her older brother excelled, and he would praise her when she did well. However, she could tell that Su Dingheng had never truly loved the siblings. Chapter 302, Your Highness. The only person he cared about and pampered to the bone was Su Yurou. Even if he was disappointed in Su Yurou now, if Su Yurou died, he would cry very sadly. On the other hand, if she had died, it would not have been the same. Perhaps, Su Dingheng would have scolded her and then pretended that he had never had a daughter. Because he had never loved her mother. Therefore, he did not love any of her mother's children. This cruel reality made Su Yingxue laugh with a sense of desolation. Boom! There was a sudden sound outside the window. Yihan quickly went to check, and then there was silence. Su Yingxue stood up cautiously. A white figure fell from the door. It was Yihan, who was as graceful as a celestial being. After Su Yingxue recovered from her surprise, the corners of her mouth unconsciously curled up. "Your Highness." "Yes." Yihan let out a low grunt and then closed the door behind him, pressing her against the door. He lowered his head and kissed her lips. Oh, Su Yingxue was taken by surprise, and by the time she could react, she couldn't resist his invitation. His passionate breath enveloped her, and she fell into his arms, her whole body feeling weak. The two of them were intimate for a while, and when Yihan couldn't hold back any longer, he separated from her. He sat down on the side and poured himself a cup of tea to calm down. Su Yingxue stood there awkwardly, not daring to get too close to him. Under the bright lights, the man's handsome features, deep facial contours, sexy jawline, and seductive gaze were on full display without any restraint, carrying a hint of coldness in his intense eyes. His thin lips had a glistening sheen, making them extremely tempting. Before the blush on Su Yingxue's face had a chance to fade, it deepened. Based on her body's response, Su Yingxue could tell that she was craving his touch. Cough, cough. Take a seat. Chu Yihan said in a low, magnetic voice, which had a unique allure. Su Yingxue was about to sit in front of him, but he pointed to a chair further away. Sit there. Su Yingxue grumbled. Why did he want to keep her so far away? She couldn't even appreciate his handsome face up close. She felt unhappy. But who dared to resist Chu Yihan? Su Yingxue pouted unhappily and sat in a chair far from him. After a while, Chu Yihan finally spoke in a low voice, if you come closer, I'll want you. Su Yingxue was speechless. What kind of bold words were these? Your Highness, you should be more restrained. Su Yingxue bit her lip, but the smile on her lips couldn't help but show. If you laugh again, I'll take action right now. Chu Yihan's eyes turned cold, and the desire in his eyes sent shivers down one's spine. Su Yingxue immediately jumped up from her chair and retreated behind a screen in the inner room. Your Highness, please calm down. We're not married yet. Even if she had agreed to be his princess, he couldn't be impulsive. Do I need you to remind me? Chu Yihan's tone started to sound a bit arrogant through the screen. Your Highness naturally doesn't need me to remind you, but want to thank you for your help today. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been so easy to clear my name. Su Yingxue's voice carried a hint of coquettishness, which made Chu Yihan's heart skip a beat. You know? Chu Yihan's lips curled into a smile. Other than Your Highness, who else could have discovered Granny Sun's vulnerability so quickly and even persuaded her to reveal the truth? Even though Your Highness didn't appear in person, you were always concerned about me. Even if one can't see you, I can still feel it. Chapter 303, Liang Jin came to the Marquis' residence to investigate again. These words may have sounded like flattery, but Su Yingxue said them from the depths of her heart. Other than Chu Yihan, who else could care about her, protect her, and pamper her to this extent? When she wanted to sleep, he would give her a pillow. When she needed care, he would immediately appear and hug her. When she encountered any difficulties, he would help her solve them properly, all without hesitation. Even if someone had the same capabilities as Chu Yihan, they wouldn't possess his precious affection. I will always protect you. Su Yingxue had heard this phrase more than once, but every time, it warmed her heart. She pushed the screen aside and discreetly glanced outside. Chu Yihan had already opened the door, preparing to leave. Taking advantage of the moment when he was distracted, she ran up behind him, hugging him tightly from behind, and stood on her tiptoes to rest her head on Chu Yihan's shoulder. She whispered, Your Highness, one like you. This sentence, like a kitten's paw, gently scratched Chu Yihan's heart. Su Yingxue closed the door, but Chu Yihan lingered, gazing at her silhouette reflected in the window and unwilling to leave. Over the years, he had encountered countless women, each with their unique beauty and various forms of admiration. They fawned over him, worshipped him, and admired him, but he remained indifferent. Only Su Yingxue's declaration of liking him had the power to make his heart stir for a lifetime. Su Yingxue, one love you. One love was enough for a lifetime. The next morning, just as Su Yingxue entered the account room, Yihan came in with a joyful expression. Miss, Lord Liang has arrived, and Marquis is receiving him in the front hall. Su Yingxue nodded and said, You quietly hand over Granny's son to Liang Jin's people. Yihan acknowledged the command and left. Su Yingxue gazed at the sky and called out, Ziwei. A dark shadow descended soundlessly, not even disturbing a single fallen leaf. The purple hue in his eyes carried a hint of determination, always ready to obey his master's orders. Su Yingxue instructed him, guard all the doors of the Marquis manor and ensure that none of the residents escape. Ziwei nodded and replied, yes. He promptly vanished like a gentle breeze, not stirring a single leaf. Su Yingxue walked leisurely to the front hall. It was evident that her father did not look pleased in the presence of Liang Jin. His expression could even be described as dark. If given the choice, Su Dingheng's least desired colleague to encounter would be Liang Jin, especially within his residence. And it had only been peaceful here for 2 days. He had just recovered from being served by Liu Shulan last night. Marquis Su, had there been no report, I would not have troubled the Marquis manner. Liang Jin maintained a stern and impartial expression. It was just that he had not told the whole truth. He had no desire to come to Su Dingheng's residence. Su Dingheng's heart ached, and he had a headache. Lord Liang, who within the Marquis manor has been involved in wrongdoing? If he knew, he would certainly deal with that individual. I received a report that someone instructed the villager Granny's son to falsely accuse Tongchang Medical Center of using medication to cause a patient's death. This person is from the Marquis manor, Liang Jin declared coldly. The moment he mentioned Tongchang Medical Center, Su Dingheng's heart skipped a beat. Could it be Su Yingxue again? For some reason, he instinctively associated this with Liu Shulan and her daughter. However, recalling that he had reconciled with Liu Shulan the previous night, he spoke sternly, Lord Liang, do you know who this person is? If someone from my Marquis manor is wrongly accused, I cannot accept it. Chapter 304. Let Mother Qiu Go. I have brought the criminal Granny's son to the door today and especially came to let her identify the person. Marquis only needs to gather everyone in Marquis manor and let Granny's son identify that person, Liang Jin stated impartially. Su Dingheng's expression darkened. Men, go and find eldest young miss. He wanted to find out what else this unfilial daughter was dissatisfied with. She was in charge of the Marquis manor's power, yet the matters in her clinic could still be brought to the manor. Su Yingxue arrived very quickly. She first bowed to Su Dingheng and then greeted Liang Jin. Liang Jin and Su Yingxue were quite familiar, but he felt that she had undergone some changes. It's only been a few days, and Miss Su seems to have become more mature after managing the family affairs. Su Yingxue smiled lightly. Lord Liang praises me too much. I have disturbed Lord Liang again regarding the matter of the Marquis manor. I am truly guilty. I am in charge of all the cases in Jiangdu capital. This is my duty. However, it seems that Miss Su did not participate in the clinic's matter this time. Liang Jin had some doubts. This time, the person who came to report the case was the manager of Tongchang Medical Center. He brought the witness to the court and described the cause and effect. He did not mention Su Yingxue at all, which surprised him. I have been in charge of the family recently and have never gone to the clinic before. Su Yingxue's voice was calm. Liang Jin nodded his admiration for Su Yingxue growing. Her medical skills were outstanding. She could open a medical center outside and manage family affairs inside. Her ability was extraordinary. Su Dingheng listened from the side. Su Yingxue was not involved in this case, so he was relieved. As long as she didn't participate, it was probably the other servants in the residence and had nothing to do with Liu Shulan and her daughter. Now that Su Yingxue was in charge, he handed this matter over to her. Yingxue, assist Lord Liang in investigating the case. Su Yingxue folded her hands at her waist. Yes, father. She first ordered Yihan to instruct the stewards of each courtyard to gather the servants of each courtyard and wait outside the hall. Then, she ordered the 3 divisions and 6 chefs to be on standby and line up according to the order for Liang Jin to bring people to identify them. The first to be recognized was the person in Su Yingxue's courtyard. Liang Jin had his way of investigating the case. He asked for a clean room and asked people to go in and interrogate them one by one before coming out. Thus, after interrogating the 3 divisions and 6 chefs, Su Yingxue called Liang Jin for lunch. In the afternoon, the people in her courtyard were the first to be identified. In Sunset Court, old Madame Qiu had already packed her belongings and came to bid farewell to Liu Shulan. Liu Shulan frowned. Old Madame Qiu, why were you so careless this time? Why did you reveal a flaw? Old Madame Qiu's eyes darkened. One was careful, but one miscalculated that old lady. I only left for a moment, and she used a dog's body to replace her son's body and burned it in front of me. She made me think that her son's body had been cremated. When one found out, the people from Tongchang Medical Center had already opened the coffin and examined the corpse. Fortunately, you took leave yesterday and went home. Now that Su Yingxue is about to find out, you should leave Jiangdu City quickly and never return. Liu Shulan gave old Madame Liu some silver notes. Old Madame Qiu had served her since she was young. If it wasn't for the fact that Su Yingxue was too fierce, she definitely wouldn't have left her. After old Madame Qiu kept the money, she patted Liu Shulan's hand earnestly. Madam, this Su Yingxue is powerful. You must be careful when you fight with her. Liu Shulan glanced at Su Yurou, who was lying on the bed and was so weak that she had shut herself in. Hatred suddenly appeared in her eyes. I will be careful. I'll return the pain that Su Yingxue has inflicted on us 10 times over. Chapter 305. Be unreasonable. Old Madame Qiu left reluctantly. She quietly walked to the corner door of the woodshed and was about to leave. Before she could take a step, a black shadow landed in front of her. The man's long and narrow eyes were devoid of emotion, and his black scabbard carried a bloodthirsty chill. Old Madame Qiu's legs trembled, and she fell to the ground. Su Dingheng had taken a nap and woke up, but Liang Jin hadn't finished his interrogation yet. Everyone in Su Yurou's courtyard had been investigated, but Liang Jin insisted that even if Su Yurou was bedridden, he would have his female subordinate bring the witness to question her directly. He was known for his fairness, and not even the emperor could challenge him, let alone Su Dingheng. Seeing that everyone in Marquis Manor had been questioned, Su Dingheng asked Liang Jin, Lord Liang, have you found any results? Liang Jin organized a thick stack of documents and pulled out a sheet with 5 names listed on it. He pointed to Su Dingheng and said, these are the 5 individuals not present in the Marquis Manor. One must personally meet them today. Su Dingheng was feeling a bit of a headache. Su Yingxue stepped forward to explain the situation. 4 of these individuals can return to the manor today for Lord Liang to interrogate. However, one of them remains missing. Who is it? Su Dingheng's brow furrowed slightly. Su Yingxue hesitated before revealing, it's the madam of Lady Liu. She asked for leave from the manor yesterday to take care of her family. I sent someone to her house just now, but we couldn't find her. Su Dingheng looked at Lady Liu and asked, were you aware of this? Liu Shulan's voice was gentle and soft. Old Madame Qiu has been with me for many years, and my elderly mother has been bedridden all along. One felt sorry for her, so I allowed her to return for a few days to take care of her mother. Instead of having her come now, why don't we wait for her to attend to her mother for a few days and then go to see Lord Liang? No. If she is within Jiangdu City, please ensure she is brought to me, Liang Jin asserted. He was known for his no-nonsense approach, never letting anyone off, and that's what made him highly respected. Liu Shulan's eyes welled up with tears as she bit her rosy lips. If Lord Liang insists on this, 1 a.m. willing to accompany Lord Liang back to the capital prefecture until old Madame Qiu is returned. After her passionate night with Su Dingheng, she knew that he would never let her go. Su Dingheng immediately voiced his opposition. Lord Liang, you have already interrogated everyone in the Marquis Manor. Only one person remains unaccounted for. Please show some leniency. Once old Madame Qiu returns after tending to her mother, I will personally bring her to the capital prefecture. Su Dingheng was more than generous. Liang Jin's expression remained stern. Even if she has left Jiangdu City, I will apprehend her today. In her heart, Su Yingxue gave Liang Jin a thumbs up. Her willingness to report every incident wasn't in vain. Liang Jin's impartiality never disappointed anyone. Upon hearing this, Liu Shulan burst into tears. She was so fragile and didn't say a word, making people's hearts ache. Su Dingheng held her and consoled her. All right, Lena, you are not to blame for this. Lord Liang is being too unreasonable. Lord Liang, if you wish to find this person, please go look for her yourself. I won't accompany you any longer. Su Dingheng expressed impatience, believing that the woman in his arms was the most important thing at that moment. Liang Jin's eyebrows slightly furrowed. Su Yingxue thought about it. Ziwei was very efficient, so she suggested, Lord Liang, it's already late. Why don't you return to the residence first and find her tomorrow? There was a surprise waiting for him at the door. Chapter 307. She wants to dig out the truth, all right. I'll leave it to you. Su Dingheng was previously unsure of how to interact with Liu Shulan. When Su Yingxue brought it up, he took the opportunity to relax with the two courtesans. Su Yingxue walked in front of Liu Shulan and said politely, "Please." Liu Shulan's handkerchief had already been twisted into a deformed shape. Old Madame Qiu's capture undoubtedly had something to do with Su Yingxue. But she couldn't question Su Yingxue, and she couldn't reveal herself. Su Yingxue even offered to escort her back home. This was like a sword with a hint of ostentation thrust into her chest. "I've heard that old Madame Qiu has been taking care of you since you were young. I believe your bond with her must be very deep," Su Yingxue said as she caught the faint fragrance of flowers wafting through Marquis' manor. "What are you trying to say?" Liu Shulan was already gnashing her teeth in hatred but had to be cautious with her words. "It's nothing. I'm just expressing my sympathy for you. Old Madame Qiu is the person closest to you. Why would she make such a mistake? Why would she provoke Tongchang Medical Center? What could she possibly gain from falsely accusing a clinic like this?" Su Yingxue raised her eyebrows, her tone carrying a sharp edge. Liu Shulan sneered and said, "Perhaps this clinic has committed some egregious act that has angered both heaven and man." Su Yingxue had put pressure on the mother and daughter. "Shouldn't they be delighted? The translation you provided is largely correct, but I have made a few minor adjustments to improve clarity and fluency while maintaining the past tense and your typesetting. You think so, but I believe this may be the result of your actions." Su Yingxue chuckled. Her expression was remarkably relaxed, and her eyes were as bright as spring. What she conveyed to Liu Shulan was not only the pride of a victor but also her freedom. Liu Shulan was now like a cautious mouse in front of her, carefully concealing her expressions and avoiding any signs of carelessness. However, Su Yingxue could freely laugh as she pleased. Sometimes, harming the enemy didn't require using physical force, striking at the heart was the most ruthless. Su Yingxue escorted Liu Shulan to the entrance of Qingxin Court. Liu Shulan's grip on the handkerchief never once relaxed. As Su Yingxue turned to leave, she whispered in her ear, "I don't know if you're familiar with criminal law, but for old Madame Qiu's involvement in ordering someone's murder, even if she's not beheaded, she will undoubtedly be severely beaten and imprisoned for several years. I'm just not sure how long someone of old Madame Qiu's age can endure." Liu Shulan had been holding back, biting her lower lip until it bled. Once Su Yingxue had walked far away, she rushed towards the courtyard's tables and chairs, kicking them over and shouting with red eyes, "Su Yingxue, one won't let you get away with this." She had harmed her daughter and her family. She wanted her to pay with her life. When Su Yingxue returned to the courtyard, she deliberately checked the courtesan's courtyard. Inside, there was laughter and merriment, and Su Dingheng was being served with great enthusiasm. She departed with a sardonic expression on her face. Yihan had been with her all along. She was so cautious that only after they returned to her room did she carefully ask, "Miss, you kept a low profile today, but you've made Liu Shulan suffer greatly. You should be happy, so why do you not seem happy at all?" Teaching Liu Shulan and her daughter a lesson should have been satisfying, even if it didn't make you happy. However, Su Yingxue's face only displayed a heavy expression. "Because what I desire, apart from their lives, is the truth." Su Yingxue's eyes held a profound depth. Taking 2 lives might be easy, but uncovering the cause of her mother's death was not so straightforward. She could make Su Yurou angry, but Liu Shulan was exceptionally patient. To learn the truth behind her mother's death, she couldn't afford to let her guard down. She had to push Liu Shulan to her limits to have a chance to unearth the truth she sought from her. Chapter 308. Motherfucking Modern Medicine. On the following day, Liang Jin sent a messenger with the report, explaining the process of resolving the case. Old Madame Qiu had been found guilty of ordering harm, and Granny's son had been convicted of plotting for financial gain. Both had received sentences, with old Madame Qiu facing 3 years of imprisonment. Upon hearing this news, Liu Shulan fainted on the spot. Su Dingheng, showing compassion, consoled her for an extended period. After Liu Shulan regained consciousness, she left without saying farewell, taking Su Yurou back to Yaoguang Garden. When Su Dingheng learned of this, he promptly pursued her. Liu Shulan, in a pitiable tone, said, "Marquis, the people around me have committed such despicable acts. I can't face you, Marquis, with this disgrace, nor can I continue residing in Marquis Manor. Marquis, please don't dwell on me. Lena, what are you saying? You are my woman, and Rua is my daughter. How can one not be concerned when you leave Marquis Manor?" Su Dingheng was deeply worried. Liu Shulan softly nestled in his arms, yet despite his words, she refused to return with him. In disappointment, Su Dingheng returned to Marquis Manor by himself. While he couldn't blame Su Yingxue, Liu Shulan's departure was unquestionably connected to her. However, Su Yingxue had efficiently managed the entire Marquis Manor. Even if he wanted to express his anger towards her, he couldn't find a reason. Therefore, when he encountered Su Yingxue, he merely walked past her with a sullen expression. Su Yingxue, accompanied by Yihan, had intended to report on recent expenditures in the household to Su Dingheng. However, Su Dingheng was too quick, and she couldn't catch up with him. Yihan felt some indignation. Miss has worked diligently in managing Marquis Manor, yet the Marquis is ignoring you in this way. Su Yingxue cynically curled her lip. When the woman he loves leaves the manor, of course, he can't be happy. Nevertheless, Liu Shulan's tactic of retreat was something Su Yingxue admired. She was truly the woman who had controlled Su Dingheng for so many years. To push her to the point of breaking down would require some effort. Liu Shulan, along with Su Yurou, moved out of Marquis Manor. The manor naturally calmed down, and there was nothing specific that required Su Yingxue's attention. She entrusted everything to Yihan and old Madame Zhong. When she had free time, she delved into Medicine King Valley to study medical arts. Her mother had left behind medical books that were well worth contemplating. The few books she had recently read were about modern medicine. While she didn't know the origin of this medical knowledge, it was markedly distinct from traditional Chinese medicine. Modern medicine involved surgeries, referred to as surgery in her mother's records. A few of the substantial medical books explained surgical procedures. They started with dissections. Su Yingxue recalled the gloves and masks she had made earlier, which were likely similar to the surgical scalpels depicted in the medical books. All these seemed to have been developed by her mother. Her interest in the subject deepened. Although she couldn't create something as sophisticated as the illustrations, she had probably crafted a set of surgical instruments herself. She acquired several rabbits and conducted dissections in Medicine King Valley. Little ginseng floated over with its long beard and, seeing her hands stained with blood, spoke in a tone laced with disdain. "Why is a young lady like you so violent? You won't be able to find a husband in the future. This is called surgery. My mother's medical books state that we must open the body and examine every muscle and nerve in detail. It can treat incurable diseases that our medical practices can't." Every time she read medical books, Su Yingxue's admiration for her mother grew. This was because the knowledge her mother had left behind was something she had never heard of before. She had a passionate pursuit of new things. Even though little ginseng, with its tens of millions of years of existence, had never heard such a statement before, it was no longer surprised. After all, it had lived for an exceedingly long time and witnessed countless things. Chapter 309. Please, let me see your Highness. However, when it saw that Su Yingxue had dissected a large number of rabbits, it felt it was a waste. It then hung up one or two and tossed them into a small hole behind the spiritual spring. Su Yingxue noticed that there were fewer rabbits. When she went over to investigate, she found that little ginseng had used the rabbit corpses she had dissected to feed the poisonous insects. "You're raising so many little cuties." Su Yingxue's eyes widened. The spiritual spring exuded a pleasant and fresh aroma, while in the small hole behind it, spiders, centipedes, and scorpions were happily feasting on the rabbit corpses. "You find them cute too, don't you? You think it's cute too, right? They've always been eating grass, but one thought it would be a waste to leave these rabbit corpses here, so one gave them a change of taste. Why didn't you tell me that you as a ginseng have a penchant for raising poisonous insects?" Su Yingxue gazed at the scorpions in the small hole. They had vibrant and colorful patterns on their backs, which were aesthetically pleasing. However, as a doctor, Su Yingxue knew that these spiders and scorpions carried various deadly toxins. "Life, oh no, I mean ginseng life is just too dull, and don't you think they're adorable? More importantly, their bodies are full of treasures. If you're stung, healthy people will die, but some sick individuals might get better. It has unexpectedly beneficial effects." Little ginseng proudly waved its whiskers. Su Yingxue smiled. They're indeed precious for a poison versus poison approach. However, she wasn't a poison doctor, so she didn't have the time to delve into these poisons for now. She only fed the rabbits to the creatures when she had spare moments. Over time, they became quite friendly with her, even crawling onto her for play. 10 days later, the Tongchang Medical Center was fully restored. Chu Mingyuan personally presented the plaque, and Su Yingxue organized the clinic's reopening. As she returned to the clinic, she found herself swamped with work, with no time to rest. After examining one patient, she called out, "Next." Liana rushed in, her eyes brimming with tears. "Miss Su, please, save our princess." Su Yingxue's expression turned somber as she followed Liana to the princess manor. After talking the princess' pulse, Su Yingxue furrowed her brow. "Is this the work of Chu Shouwen?" Sheng Ping's tragic and ashen face spoke of deep despair. She didn't answer but conveyed everything through her expression. "That vile scum." Su Yingxue cursed. She had never seen such a disgusting man before. Not only did he bully women, but he also made them suffer so much that they wished they were dead. Sheng Ping could no longer give birth, but now she was ill and could not stand it. Coupled with her long-term depression, it was not a sign of longevity. "Dr. Su, I beg you, I want to see your Highness again." Tears welled up in Sheng Ping's pleading eyes. Su Yingxue pursed her lips. "For now, you must focus on your recovery. Other matters can be considered after you regain your health. Dr. Su, one know my time is limited, but one beg you to let me see your Highness again. Please help me deliver this sachet to him. I simply want to see your Highness once more before one depart this world." Sheng Ping's frail hands tightly gripped Su Yingxue's arm. Su Yingxue's beautiful face turned cold. "How can you be certain that he will meet you? If it were anyone else pleading with him, he might not agree. But you. Your Highness has fallen for you. If you speak on my behalf, he will undoubtedly come to see me." The softness in Sheng Ping's voice tugged at the heartstrings. However, Su Yingxue wouldn't let her principles waver. "You know that your Highness has feelings for me, but do you know that one also have affection for him?" Chapter 310, Why Don't You See for Whom This King Agreed? Su Yingxue's eyes were clear and bright. She didn't hide anything and had the same fierce and domineering aura as Chu Yihan. Sheng Ping managed a bitter smile. "One or can see. Since you can see it, you should know that your move is not a wise one," Su Yingxue remarked. She couldn't bring herself to anger or dislike the woman before her, yet she couldn't muster any pity either. "I know, but one have no other choice." Sheng Ping stood humbly, kneeling in front of Su Yingxue. "The only thing I can gamble is your mercy," she said, her voice heavy with emotion. Before the fall of the Yu Kingdom, she had been pure and noble, the embodiment of moonlight in the Yu Kingdom. But with the kingdom's collapse and the loss of its prosperity, she became the princess of a fallen nation. Still, she carried herself with grace, refusing to yield even in the face of humiliation. She had never contemplated an easy way out, not until now, when she faced death, did she realize that her aspirations remained unfulfilled, and she would not rest in peace, even in death. Then you've lost. One have no mercy, especially for women without dignity. Su Yingxue coldly withdrew her hand, fetched the medicine, and then left the princess manor. In her anger, she didn't notice that a pair of malevolent eyes were watching her as she left. Chu Xiuwen, with a limp, his eyes filled with fury, muttered to himself, how could she be here? Was she connected to that wretched woman, Sheng Ping? As Su Yingxue pondered Sheng Ping's words, she knew that Sheng Ping's health condition only had a few more years to go. Having been given a second chance at life, what she detested most were undignified pleas. Despite being a woman, wasn't it possible to achieve everything through one's efforts? But considering Sheng Ping's knowledge of her mother's identity, she had delivered medicine to Sheng Ping before making a detour to the 9th prince's mansion. In the study, Chu Yihan was engrossed in reading. Su Yingxue could enter the mansion without any hindrance. As she stepped into the study, she saw Chu Yihan holding a book. He had opened a window, and the golden silkwood emitted golden threads in the sunlight, surrounding him like a shimmering golden aura. His deep-set features and elegant profile were captivating to Su Yingxue. Holding the medicine, she stood at the door, entranced. When she came back to her senses, Chu Yihan had already walked to the door and carried her in. Bringing medicine for me. Chu Yihan glanced at the medicine packet in her hand, and his spirits lifted. This is for Sheng Ping, Su Yingxue answered honestly. Chu Yihan's expression remained indifferent, his interest waning. May first ask your highness for a favor. Su Yingxue asked with some trepidation. Of course, Chu Yihan responded directly without questions. Su Yingxue chuckled. In that case, would your highness accompany me to the princess manor? She didn't dare directly request that Chu Yihan meet Sheng Ping. After all, she wasn't entirely comfortable with this matter. But Chu Yihan immediately understood. She wants to see me. Su Yingxue lowered her head in guilt, thinking her silence was probably an admission. Chu Yihan's aura suddenly became oppressive. He tersely said, let's go. Su Yingxue's heart suddenly felt heavy. You agreed to meet Sheng Ping so readily? Have you forgotten who 1 a.m. agreeing to? Chu Yihan's face turned cold, and his eyes were like ice as if they could pierce through anyone. Su Yingxue lowered her head. I'm not insisting that you agree. At least, your highness could have refused, right? Chapter 311. Her mother was a noble of the Wei dynasty. I will not reject any request you make, but you must understand one thing, I have no personal connection with her. Even if she dies now, it won't affect me. Chu Yihan's tone was icy, showing no sympathy. Are you really that heartless? That's it. I have no feelings for her. A touch of anger crossed Chu Yihan's face. He almost wished he could peer into Su Yingxue's thoughts. Su Yingxue stood there like a rabbit plucked of its tiger fur, obediently silent. Chu Yihan kept his gaze on her, his clear eyes softening as he explained, I conquered the Yu kingdom out of loyalty to the great Cheng dynasty, and I saved Sheng Ping out of honor. One have treated her justly and faithfully. However, I feel nothing for her. I don't owe her anything. So, even if Sheng Ping were to die in front of him, he wouldn't be moved. Those who are irrelevant to me have never been a concern for me. Chu Yihan's face remained cold, yet his eyes burned with a fiery intensity. Su Yingxue knew that this fiery passion was reserved for her. Her face was red, and her hair was hanging lightly on her skin. I understand. I will convey your message. Very well. Chu Yihan tenderly ruffled her hair, filled with fondness. His little dumpling also had times when she was silly, and she was quite cute when she was silly. Su Yingxue shook her head, realizing her request for Chu Yihan to see Sheng Ping was a foolish idea. Even her dying wish was not to be fulfilled. Because the thing that made women suffer the most was not being heartless, but rather unrequited love. Su Yingxue went to the princess manor alone. When Sheng Ping heard that Chu Yihan refused to come to see her, she spat out a mouthful of blood on the spot. She leaned against the headboard weakly, her eyes filled with heartbreak and despair. Why is he so heartless to me? He wouldn't even come to see me one last time. Princess, there has always been a misunderstanding. He has never felt any affection for you, Su Yingxue calmly explained. She didn't want to hurt Sheng Ping, but she needed to be honest. But he saved me. He held me and brought me back to the great Cheng dynasty. Sheng Ping's voice faltered as tears welled up in her eyes. At the very least, he should remember me. Is it so impossible for me to see him one more time? It's not about the impossibility but the fact that it won't happen. Su Yingxue shattered her illusions without mercy. Princess, you can't force someone who has never loved you to hold you in their heart. To him, you are insignificant, but to you, it's a heart-wrenching pain. She had experienced this in her past life. For me, it's not just heart-wrenching pain. Sheng Ping laughed bitterly. From the moment she saw Chu Yihan, she felt as though she had fallen into an icy lake. She had always used her own heart to warm herself, but after all these years, she finally understood that her heart was too weak and small to thaw an entire icy lake. I'm sorry. I can only treat your body. I can't heal your heartache. Su Yingxue brought the medicine to Sheng Ping. Sheng Ping tilted her head and drank the medicine down, her disheveled hair adding a touch of melancholic beauty. Some of the medicinal liquid lingered at the corner of her mouth. Her despairing eyes gazed at Su Yingxue. Dr. Su, I will tell you everything about your mother's background. She's actually from Great Wei, puff. A surge of blood rushed up, and Sheng Ping coughed up several mouthfuls of dark, purplish blood. She lay against the headboard as Su Yingxue hurried over to support her. Princess, please don't get agitated. Steady your breath. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.